Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, to today's stream where we are going to tackle the topic of fat loss for men. You'll see here that I have a working title, but just like any of these, sometimes the title changes based on the algorithms or what my research indicates. But basically, we're just going to talk about the life of a fat guy. And Steve and I have been friends for a while. Steve has battled bouts of being overweight in his life. He's also been really lean and really trim and jacked, and same as me. I started off as a fat kid. If you guys go back to some of the older content on my channel, you will see that. There's also a playlist called Fat to Fit on my channel if you want to catch those videos. But really, we're just going to talk about first the importance of being fit, not just for like get the girls or look good in the mirror, but just for general health purposes. Like it does something to
Right.
you once you're able to get your overall fitness and general health in check. So we're going to talk about the benefits of that, the importance of that, and then some of the struggle guys face, regardless of where you're at on your journey. I think for me at peak fatness, I was 285 pounds. I'm 5'11", but I was also in high school, so I didn't have much muscle mass on me. So you can imagine I was a porker. Lost 100 pounds in a year about the time I was 17 or so. I have managed to keep it off since. I have plumped out on occasion, through very short-lived periods of my life, and then usually once I hit what's acceptable for me for maximum level of fatness, body fat percentage-wise, not necessarily weight on the scale-wise, then I start cutting or I lean back out again. So that's what today's topic is going to be about, guys. I'll post a link to come up here and join us in the discussion. If you choose to do so at any point, you can leave any comments or questions there in the chat. Make sure to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and the notification bell, all that good stuff. But let's dive on into it. So, Steve, first, do you want to share? I briefly touched upon it. What your experience is with being a fatty or former fatty, or however you classify yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I had an identical weight as you. I don't think that, I mean, relative to what you're talking about muscle mass wise, I'm obviously a big dude, even lean. I'm, 215, 220 pounds. So it's a little bit, for me, it was probably a little bit different of an experience. And it's happened, it's fluctuated throughout my adult life. So like 18 years old, you get out of, or 17 for me, I guess. I got out of high school, and for 6 months after that, I just my folks moved overseas. I just drank beer basically the entire time. Got up to like 260 pounds or whatever, and then I decided I wanted to go in the military, and it turns out that they don't take fatties in the military, so I had to burn
Oh, who would
off.
have thunk?
Yeah, right. I know. I had to burn off like 55 pounds or so, and it took me pretty close to a year to do so. I mean, I didn't know much about diet back then. I didn't know much about like micronutrients. I didn't know anything like that. And truthfully, it was a lot of work. I mean, I was fucking dude. I was in the gym 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day in some cases. I think it was 10 months. I went to a recruiter. I think I was 240 pounds, and then after that, I ended up losing another 25 or so, basically being accepted in on body fat percentage, which at the time I think was like 17.5. And I was like 217 pounds when I went in. So I'm kind of like in that sweet spot, went through that. And then over time, just kind of developed more body fat after I got out of the military, just kind of, just started drinking beers and doing whatever and hanging out. And then eventually just ate my way up, or drank my way up rather, because I metabolized food pretty well, to about the same weight as I was. Lost weight again at like 25. Lost weight again. I went from like 260-ish to back down to like 215 and held that for a while. Then blew back up, was a drunk for a while, blew that back up to 285, hung out there for 2 or 3 years until really recently. I've kind of dialed it back. Well, I've dialed it back a lot. I maxed out at 285, and that was like the worst mental and emotional and physical experience I'd ever had in my life as far as diet is concerned. And now I'm about 48 pounds off. I'm at 237 is what I weighed in at this morning. And I kind of like it. I mean, obviously it's going to get better over time because I have good habits, but and I quit drinking alcohol. That was a huge thing. Like that was probably the biggest and most definite factor of me being able to not only
start smoking instead.
Yeah, well, I do some contracts that are government based, so I can't necessarily do that now, unfortunately, with my business.
That sucks.
So
a lot of people fall into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So alcohol's fine. It literally kills you decades before you're supposed to naturally go. But that's cool.
Absolutely.
But this shit's verboten for a lot of industries. It still blows my mind.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's, I mean, as a basis of like, I mean, I've gained and lost weight 3-4 times, and in a big way. It's not like 10 pounds here and there. It's like 30, 40, 50, 60. I mean, in some cases, like now I'm at 48 pounds and I have 20 more pounds to go. That'll be close to 70 pounds over what it is going to end up being probably a 7-month, 8-month period that I've actually been like actively losing weight and not just kind of teeter-tottering between this and that.
And your trajectory follows that of a lot of adult males. You get real lean for the military. You get in reasonable shape, at least the acceptable standards, because otherwise you're not in. And then once you come out the other side of that endeavor, for me, it was like the college thing. In college, I think I got plump a couple of times, but I was usually in real good shape all through college. I played baseball a couple of years abroad. I was in the gym they used to do siestas back then, 2 to 3 hour breaks in the middle of the afternoon. So that's when all the foreigners went to the gym, and we'd spend all day there. That was our sanctuary. That was on top of your morning conditioning and your evening practices. So I was absolutely just a monster when I was playing ball down here. And then you get out of college, and you mentioned the drinking. That drinking habit, it's weird how that can kind of have a tendency to carry over with you post-college, post-military, I don't know what to call those years, like your 18 to 23-year-old time frame in life, where usually guys go military, they do some sort of vocational program, technical program training. Maybe you're going right earlier into your career, some kind of apprenticeship or traditional university. But after that period of your life, a lot of guys fall into that area where their weight fluctuates, or and a lot of times it falls into the drinking thing too. But a question for you: Were you overweight or obese, or just a little sloppy as a child or a teenager, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you. I guess I won't go all the way back to like the big fucking born, but like in
The origin
ninth
story.
grade, my origin story. But in ninth grade, I was 155 pounds. I mean, my dad. My dad is a carries a lot of muscle on him. He's a bodybuilder. Was a bodybuilder now. He's thick.
My dad was too. My dad's a big old boy. About as wide as he is tall.
So I grew up of the belief that everybody's fucking dad was a bodybuilder. That he looked like, to me, the Hulk. I mean, he's 200 pounds. I'm fucking 240, right? 237 right now. I'm 50 pounds heavier than him anymore. But in ninth grade, my dad was taking me to the gym, and I was lifting weights, but I was just kind of like skinny fat. I grew from like 5'6" to 5'11", 5'10" when I was in like ninth grade. And I had that baseball, like that lanky baseball thing, but I had a little bit of baby fat on me still. And my dad's solution, which in retrospect wasn't wrong now or in the peak points of my life, but his theory, because he wanted me to play football, I kind of wanted to play football, but I've always been like clunky slow and shit. So his theory was, let's put as much muscle on this motherfucker as possible. Absolutely as much muscle as possible. So
taking
for like
creatine
6
at
months,
10 years old, feeding you
I think maybe not creatine.
Carb gainers.
I don't even know. Maybe I was taking creatine at 10 years old, but at like 13 or 14, I was going to the gym doing the five sets of 5, bench squat, deadlift, doing accessory lifts 2 days a week, and I was eating somewhere between, I'm going to say reasonably as a kid, I was probably covering 4,000 to 6,000 calories a day and not really doing much cardio. This was like, we just need to get you strong. We need to put muscle on you, which I'm thankful for now, by the way. I'm clear that up real quick. But I walked in the gym at I'm going to say it was 155. It was somewhere between 155 and 160. And that was in December of whenever the fuck I was in ninth grade. I don't remember the year exactly. But then the next year that I came in for spring training for football, or was it the next? Yeah, it was spring training for football. You go through that month or two or whatever. I walked in the gym at 210 pounds. So in 6 months, I put on 10 pounds a month. I was cranking like hard. And, bench squat deadlift numbers basically tripled because I didn't have any for lack of a better term when I was 155 a week. But I was in ninth grade. So, I mean, you're just a superhuman in ninth grade. So that was kind of the basis of like where I gained the most weight. That was actually like really good for me as a grown adult. It set a really good foundation as far as how big I was going to be rather than me having to start doing that now. But so I I was still kind of chubby. I mean, really, I was still kind of chubby, but I had quads. You know, I was a thick dude. I was 5'10", 5'11", 210 pounds. I was basically your size right now in 10th grade, right? So short answer, yeah, I guess I've always been bigger than average, but I've always been an athlete. I've always played baseball. I've always been a 3-sport athlete, typically, mostly wrestling, football, baseball, basketball in middle school, but that kind of fizzled out.
I did those ones too. Basketball, played 2 seasons, made 3 points each season, realized not my sport.
Right. Once you hit 5'11" and you got all those other kids are 6'6", yeah.
Yeah, I got real tall real fast, but I was fat, so I was slow. Even in baseball, I was a good baseball player. I had a really high batting average. I had a fantastic arm, and I didn't pitch too much, but on the mound, probably had better arm speed than most of my peers, but nothing, outstanding. But I was able to read the batters, and I was able to know where I'm at and looking at it almost like a chess game. And so I was always a good asset on the field, but once I got on base, I was a liability. Thank God back in the day we could have courtesy runners, and since I was a catcher, they're like, "Oh, Jaron's courtesy runner." So I had the most runs on the team, but I never ran the damn bases. I'd hit the longest singles in the history of my high school baseball league. Just hit it the other way, absolutely crush it to the corner, and like as I'm rounding first, I'm like, yeah, I don't know,
not gonna make it.
I was slow. Yeah. I was lugging.
They called me the fridge. They called me the fridge in select ball. Like, you give me a baseball, I can throw a baseball 90 miles an hour, 14, 85 miles an hour, 14. But man, if I had a nice tight, like, line drive grounder that rolled to a 400-foot fence, I might get to second base without a problem. And I won't be winded. It's not that I was fat and completely out of shape. I was just heavy enough where I was just not that fast. Just wasn't fast. And I still, to this day, I haven't ran like that, obviously, in forever. But I still am not fucking fast by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I mean, when I played ball in Mexico, I managed to lose 100 pounds, put on like 30 pounds of lean muscle that I didn't previously have. It's weird. We'll get into this too. Once you're a little leaner, it's easier to put on lean muscle mass and keep it on too. Your body undergoes a lot of biological changes once you get to that point. But I remember working on my speed. I'd run pole to pole. I'd do that every morning. I'd do base running exercises, but down here, the fields were quite a bit shorter than when I played in high school in the U.S. So what would regularly be a fly out or like maybe a long fly out in the U.S. high school type fields, down here was over the fence. So my batting average dropped considerably. It was cut almost in half based on what I did previously. So I never really had the opportunity to run the bases to try off or showcase my new athleticism once I lost on that weight and put some muscle on. I have another topic I want to touch on, but first we have a buddy of mine, Jesse, backstage. He is also a former fat kid, so we'll get his Batman origin story. Oh, Fat Man origin story. We're gonna get Jesse's Fat Man origin story.
Absolutely.
And then we'll start uncovering some more topics. So, Jesse,
how fitting! You guys brought me on for this topic. It's perfect.
Yeah. Finally got a topic you can opine on. So, you have experience being a former fatty, right?
Sorry, I snorted.
Did you just snort? We're talking about fat stuff, and you're snorting over here.
Yep, dude, Piggy, Mr. Piggy. I got a sinus infection.
Right?
We actually talked about this during our live
for chlamydia.
both shared our stories.
Watch yesterday's show.
Yeah. Back in the day when I was like in high school, I was running track and cross country. I was always like the second to the slowest or the slowest one. That stuff was embarrassing. And also, like, people would always make fun of me because I was fat. So obviously I had to make a change. Part of it could have been like a cultural thing because, growing up with a Chinese mother, she understood, she loved me, but like she kind of like fed me wrong. So that was
she showed her love by feeding you.
Yeah.
That's how moms show their love, dude. For sure.
In Chinese culture, the fatter you are, it's like it's supposed to like represent like wealth or something.
Yeah, that's an Asian thing for sure.
Yeah. It was totally backwards, but and also I guess part of the American culture too, because when my father first came to this country, he became fat really fast. So
hungry.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta ask, like, how are the foods and the diet in Mexico? How are they compared to America?
Ooh.
Yeah, down here that's an interesting topic. So they always say that I believe it's usually back and forth between Mexico and the U.S. for fattest country in the world. But I always make the point, okay, define fat. So say it's like 5-10 pounds overweight. I don't know what the actual definition is, or based on when they
Right.
do these percentages. So yeah, maybe as a portion of the population, percentage wise, it might be higher than the US at times. Again, they fluctuate back and forth, but you don't see just the gross obesity down here like you do in the US.
Oh,
So I always
okay.
make the point, okay, Mexico may be number one for now. The US will come back and beat you next year.
No
But
doubt.
we take fatness to a whole new level. When I get the worst culture shock when I get off the airplane at any major airport in the US after having been abroad a few months, and you look around, you're just like, geez, these people are dying. They're so fat that they've got less than 10 years left on this planet, and it is a medical issue. It is a huge societal issue, and no one seems to talk about it. And I understand it's tough, especially we have all these like body positivity things in the U.S., which Steve and I were joking about this yesterday in the post show. Body positivity, which I agree in body positivity, but for me that means I positively treat my body well. By
Absolutely.
poisoning yourself and killing yourself prematurely,
Mm.
there's nothing positive about that. I've never understood that. So yeah, here in Mexico, maybe percentage wise there are fatter people, but I just don't see it. I mean, they eat really well down here in their food. They use real animal fat. They use lard. They use the manteca or the maíz for a lot of their carb-based meals, which, corn isn't the best carb source. And we can get into that once we develop this
no
topic
doubt.
more. Corn is not the best carb source. There are better ones. So you'd expect them to be fatter, but they're also more active here. The weather's really nice. I've noticed typically when I live in nicer places climate-wise, people are outside more. They're more active. Something about the sunlight, it does do something to you hormonally and biologically also. It lifts your mood up. So a lot of times I run into the habit now. For my size, I actually don't eat a lot. And
Me
I run
neither,
into the
actually.
problem where we'll do this stream for a couple hours. I'll pop on Bentley's stream, Embrace Masculinity. Look up that channel, follow him. I'll be on there right after this, and then we'll do a post show. So for the next 5, 6, maybe even 7 hours. Sometimes those post shows go real long.
Right.
Guys, if you want to know more about the post shows, I'm not going to pitch it right now and interrupt the conversation, but read that little ticker down there. But sometimes those post shows go really long. We really dive into some shit with guys. And at the end of the night, it's like, okay, what can I order before 9 p.m., 10 p.m. when all the options, reasonably healthy options on Uber Eats are still available? Otherwise, after 10 p.m., it's all fast food down here, like
Yeah.
street tacos or hot dogs
Here
or
too.
pizza or shit like that. So usually at the end of the night, I find, I'm a pot smoker, so I'm doing a sunny sativa now, which gives me more creative social energy. At the night, I'll transition it more, numb the body and bring it down and bring the mind down with more of kind of like a couch lock type indica. Typically, I stay away from strains that give me the munchies. Guys, join that private community down there. There's a comprehensive guide on how to manage munchies. Like, you can have a 6-pack and be a pot smoker if that is your thing.
As if it wasn't hard enough already, right?
This has all been diagrammed out. I know exactly what I'm doing here. So, but at the end of the night, a lot of times I'm just not hungry. I have to kind of force feed myself, and I have to hit 200 grams of protein. I think is probably, like, usually they say 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight to maintain or maximize lean muscle mass. But I calculate that number based on my lean muscle mass, not my total body weight. So usually like 160 to 175 grams of protein, I'll hit there. By that time, you're full, and it's like, oh, I'm only at 900 to 1,200 calories. I need to fill in the rest of the calories. So a big thing for me is getting rid of the junk food. I do make healthy versions of desserts and cuisines and dishes that I usually enjoy, but that is a little tougher down here. And again, just to wrap up your question, the culture is starting to change. You're starting to see more organic options. You're starting to see leaner options. You're starting to see reduced sodium. You're starting to see baked potato chips, but there's still quite a ways behind the US. And even in the US, I use my experience based on living in a part of Southern California where most people were fit. So those options were readily available, those healthier alternatives, where a lot of guys, and I know a lot of my audience, you guys live in more rural type areas where it's really difficult to find that stuff. But again, as we get into like more of the diet topics in the conversation, I'll spout off some trips, even for guys, as long as you have like a Safeway, Kroger, Ralph's, any of those that are owned by the major grocery chains, there are products you can find right on the shelf now. So we will get into those topics here as this stream develops.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool.
It's
So
actually a
going
lot.
back to my story, I really had to make a change, and simple as telling my mom, "Hey, I gotta change my diet. Like this isn't working." And because you can do all the exercise all you want, but then if your diet's all screwed up, it's
It just
counterproductive.
offsets it, completely negates
Right,
it.
right,
You can
exactly,
burn a whole
exactly.
good workout with one fucking pizza or
Yeah.
I did
one
that
too
with
many
booze. I was
donuts.
working my ass off for a long time and just going home and having
Oh
6
yeah,
drinks, and it was fucking me up. Yeah.
Right,
we'll get to
Steve,
that
just like
topic too.
you,
Yeah, booze fucks you up.
like I would, have the weight loss journeys like just on and off. Sometimes I'd gain the weight back, and then I'd go on periods where I'd lose it again and then gain it back. And part of it too was working corporate America, because I worked a lot of crappy jobs where there's a Wendy's nearby, or I worked overnights and I can only like get snacks from the snack machine and like little Milky Way bars or some shit. And yeah, that stuff makes you fat really quick. So, and that's part of the reason I left corporate America too, was because I just wanted to live a healthier lifestyle as an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Ironic, right? Because your stress load, sorry about the noise. Your stress load is actually, as an entrepreneur, is I think it's higher but more consistent, right?
right,
It's certainly higher, but you kind of your mind kind of adapts to that level over time, over a short bit of time. So as far as the weight, and I'm trying to relate to you, did you notice that your weight gain and weight loss was specifically around, and I say specifically being like a 6-month period, around higher stress events than your body and mind were used to?
Yes, yes, definitely. I like eat a lot more Wendy's and like consume more sugar when I'm stressed out, but that was in the past, when I didn't know what I knew now. So now when I start craving that stuff, I'm actually able to fight it off and just do other things, like I'll go for a run or I'll go to the gym just to blow off the steam.
Yeah, that's
So
an
that
extreme. That's an extreme switch. That's good. I mean, if
yeah,
you can do that,
so I don't have to, basically go back to being fat again, because and my mom, she can't really meal prep for me anymore because she's got to take care of my father. My father's got some health problems, and it's like 4 years since I lived with my parents. So
Weight
it
related
really is up to
problems.
me to like make healthy choices now. So
yeah,
Does your father have weight related problems
yes,
like
yes, he does.
diabetes or anything like that?
They were immigrants to this country, and when back in the day, we didn't know about diet or anything, or how bad carbs really were for you. So my dad's which is the same problem that you talked about, Steve, about the emotional eating, the stress eating.
yeah,
That's what happened with him a lot, because when you're like the only one of your kind to like a brand new country, it's very stressful. So
sure.
like, but also, like, nowadays I just shop at Wegmans. It's perfect to do day game too, because a lot of the hot girls shop there too. So kill two birds with one stone. And those
Go to
are
IKEA afterwards. IKEA's clutch.
Yeah, you're just gonna be socialed out after those two places.
those much higher quality woman in like Whole Foods or like any kind of like organic market, like just a lot better mannered. They're not like the trashy club or bar girls that don't know how to act.
Yeah.
So I mean, like those women are like perfect for girlfriend material. But anyway, going back on topic. So I have a question for like both of you guys. I think both of you can kind of relate. So as digital nomads, you guys are sitting down a lot more on the computer a lot more. How do you make sure that you don't go back to gaining weight because you're sitting down for so long? Because sitting's like the new smoking. How do you prevent the weight from coming back? How do you keep it off?
Do you want to go first,
I
Sharon?
smoke. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. I'm actually not seated too often. Like, okay, take that back. I spend most of my day seated in this exact spot, but I break it up. When I get up in the morning, I usually go for a quick walk to get my blood flowing. I like to. There's a reason I've always lived in very temperate climates. I'm kind of wired in a way that I have overstimulation of things that are coming in my brain's processing. So I'm very sensitive to touch and light and sounds and smells and things like that. I always have been. So I usually have the window open, natural breeze blowing through, and I like to be a part of that. So I'll go downstairs and I want to feel the vibe of the city. I want to feel what's around me. So I'll go for my morning walk. Lunchtime, I usually go to the gym around midday or so. If I have to go up or downstairs to run any errands, I'll do that. And then after these streams, you guys know I'm very active in the dating life. Usually I have a girl come over, and, you know, there's a solid cardio session there too, because when you do it often enough, guess what? Your stamina goes through the fucking roof. It takes you a while to get things done. And, you know, I show my girls a good time too. So I get a lot of cardio in my day, so to speak. And then another trick is, which I used to always think it was bullshit before I actually started doing it, but I've been using this protocol or this tool for the last 7 or 8 years now. And it's weird. I lived for a while. I got really into fitness in Southern California, got in the fitness scene, did a couple of fitness shoots. I have done paid shoots. So I would never fancy myself a model, but I have been paid for it. So take that as you may. And that's a real nice point to get to when you look at yourself previously, like the fat kid in high school that couldn't get a date, that was slow around the bases, that was always the last kid to finish when we were running the mile in PE class. It's nice to be like, oh, I'm getting paid to like show my abs on camera. That's pretty fucking cool. But you start hanging out in those communities and you ask people like, hey, what's, you know, just like a conversation we're having now. Hey, were you always genetically gifted? Do you have to work hard at it? Were you a slow gainer? Were you an endomorphic type guy that has to literally starve yourself? I really don't eat that much for a guy my size, and it's not hard for me to maintain muscle mass. But you ask these guys in the industry, most of them are on TRT. For females, they take a low dose of Anavar, which towards the end of this, we can get into like tips of like how to like get 6-packs and shit like that. I've got all sorts of tips for that. But they take Anavar. Or other substances, but for women you have to be real careful with that. And then the big one is intermittent fasting, which is just really at the end of the day, it's all caloric restriction. It's calories in versus calories out, and that's a very general way of looking at it. Obviously, if you want to achieve like a fitness level model type body, you have to get deeper into the fitness space and know more kind of biologically what's going on with your body, but at a very general level. So let's say you're a guy right now, you're 100 pounds overweight, and you're like, I just need to get started. Good starting point is start to calculate what you're putting in your mouth every day calorically. You also need to know what's called your BMR, that's your base metabolic rate, your RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate, and then I go on TDEE, which is your total daily expenditure of energy. So that lets you know, and then adjust your diet accordingly. If you're having a day where you don't go to the gym or you're sitting on your ass all day, then you might want to go that lower number, which is your basal metabolic rate. That's just what your body needs to be alive. So a good starting point is just simple caloric restriction, and that is calories in versus calories out. Find an app like Body Space or MyFitnessPal, or there's all sorts of them out there. We can start tracking that stuff and then start actually auditing what is going in your face. That's step number one. And then you can get into macros, more kind of complicated stuff later. So what intermittent fasting does, a lot of people, there are other benefits. I do extended fast. I like going into a phase called autophagy, where your body essentially starts to kill like your precancerous, your malignant cells, or just like your bullshit DNA that like your body just kind of takes out the trash, which is really nice. And you can, if you get into meditative stuff, more alternative plant type medicines, you can actually feel that process occurring, and it is rejuvenating. It is so refreshing.
Yeah,
after a bender like Cancun, usually in the past, I do like a 5-day fast. However, I include a dopamine fast there too, and that means 5 days, no social media, no digital, nothing. It's like me and a journal or a book, and I'm doing spiritual work on myself there. So fortunately, I haven't been able to do that. But those extended fasts, you can literally feel your body regenerate. It's quite invigorating. But yeah, most fitness guys, to Jesse, bring it back to your main point and wrap this up. Most fitness people practice some sort of calorie restriction. Well, they all do. If you want to be lean, you have to be calorically restricted. And sometimes that's tough. I know for me, a lot of times I used to be in this camp where I like to eat. Again, now I have to kind of force myself to do it. But you get to the point where with the caloric restriction, you're like, okay, well, I really like to eat. So if you're doing 5 to 6 small meals a day and you're a fat guy and you're trying to get leaner, and especially if you're doing like carb rich meals, then it makes your body want more and more. And a lot of times, again, we'll get into macros here a bit later in the cast, but a lot of times carbs will make you crave more because it's nutritionally deficient and your body needs the protein. So intermittent fasting helps that because you have a window. A lot of guys start with like a 16-8 protocol, which is 16 hours fasting, 8 hours off. I do what's called OMAD. That's 1 meal a day. I do take like a scoop or two of protein before the gym just so I don't go like completely catabolic. I am on TRT. I do stay within physiological doses. I am medically supervised on that because I'm all about optimization, and aging gracefully is my fitness goal now, or just general health goals. So yeah, Jesse, yeah, I'm sedentary most of the day, but I am doing physical stuff at least 3 times a day. First walk in the morning, gym session at lunch, and then fun times at night. If I don't have fun times at night, I'm usually playing guitar. And once I get going, I'm standing up and pacing around the apartment and like really get my heart rate up, 120 to 135 beats per minute when I start feeling the music. So that is cardio too. And I realized that the points in my life, because there have been points where I've let myself go a little bit. I get a little pudgy, and then like, all right, Jaron, get your shit together. But at any point in my life, and Steve, when you're telling your story, it sounds kind of like the same thing. Like playing ball, it's like, okay, like early morning conditioning, weight session mid-afternoon, and then my practice at night. But usually, as long as I was doing some sort of physical activity for at least 20 minutes a day, 3 times a day, then that's kind of where my body likes to be metabolically. So really, I don't have to watch my diet too terribly much. Even on OMAD, like after 5, 6, 7 hours of streams I have lined up back to back today, I might order something tonight that's not like the healthiest, but I always hit my protein first, and then you fill in the rest with carbs and fat. And again, we'll get more into the specifics of how macros play with each other there.
Yeah, and for me, I don't necessarily. I do OMAD sometimes. I think I do it naturally. Like I'm not generally a hungry person. I'm kind of following the same camp as Jaron, except for I don't eat out a lot, and when I do, I tend to be extremely strict with myself when I do. So I tend to live in a slight calorie deficit, regardless of what time of year it is, whether I'm being sedentary or not. Like my body, I wear a Whoop strap, so it tells me basically around where I'm burning if I'm not doing shit, right? Like if I don't exercise, it's cold outside, I don't go outside all day, I'm at like 2,400 calories. I probably come in at like 21 to 2,200. And that's a longevity play more than anything. It's you'll notice in these blue zones, people typically take in less calories than their body burns, and your body just kind of adjusts to that because you're going to go over it, you're going to go under it. It's really over a long period of time, the net amount of the net deficit. So you kind of naturally fall into your range. And I've been on the carnivore diet. I would say 95% animal product carnivore diet, because I do every once in a while. We go to Texas Roadhouse, I'll eat a big steak, but I'll have a couple rolls. Or
their bread is so good.
It's so
These
good.
fucking restaurants and their bread, that's where they get you.
Yeah, and then if I want a fucking cookie, dude, I'm gonna eat a cookie because I'm already calorie restricted enough. And the cookie,
I got almond flour cookies in the air fryer down. Such a bomb dessert. With almond milk, sugar-free ice cream that they sell down the street. There we go.
Dude, I'd be in the bathroom after any version of milk. It's weird. Yeah. The only milk that I can take in is goat milk, really, without having any sort of repercussion. I try to stay low and inflammatory, like overall, right? So for me on the carnivore diet,
that's just general health, but it does help with the fat loss too.
A lot. And it's a water thing too. I mean, I don't hold a lot of water. I consume a lot of water. I don't hold a lot of water. I eat a ton of salt. But like, for example, earlier I had 6 eggs and 2 ounces of beef liver, and I just mixed it up and threw some Cajun seasoning on it and ate it. Like, I'm not an emotional eater. I don't do, like, Jaron and I are same in theory, like as far as maybe calorie restriction, autophagy, intermittent fasting. We both kind of naturally do it. I think we kind of built that habit together in a weird way in our early adulthood. Mm-hmm. But I follow a very strict protocol, because it's when I follow that very strict protocol, my mind tends to wander. Like I just go off, I'll have, it's like when I drink alcohol, I would have like 3 drinks one day, and then I would have like 12 the next, and then I would have like 14 the next, and I go back to, oh shit, I need to be sober because I feel like shit. It's kind of like that with food with me. And I've never really been an overeater. So I just kind of fall into that. I just kind of eat enough, and I'll eat a lot. Like I'll sit down and eat 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of steak at one time if I'm going on a 1 meal a day. But I know I don't track the shit as tight as Jaron does, but I know that a pound of chuck steak is 1,000 calories. So if I eat a pound of chuck steak, I got 1,000 calories. If I eat 6 eggs, that's 340 or 50 calories. Throw a couple tablespoons of butter in that. That's 200 calories. Like I have a pretty good idea, and as long as I'm in that slight deficit, that's what I'm aiming for. Now when I'm training, which I had a foot injury, I want to call it an injury because I didn't injure it. I just have arthritis in my right foot. I took two weeks off, and I still haven't gone back to that yet. In that time frame, say that 30-day time frame, because it's been about 2 weeks, I've still maintained about 4 pounds of fat loss, like weight loss. But because I eat about 200 grams of protein, 220 grams of protein a day, by proxy, I'm preserving muscle like crazy because I'm getting enough. Like people just that's the biggest thing is people are under eating protein and overeating carbohydrates or fat or whatever. If you're low fat or high fat, whatever the fuck you want to do. I just prescribe to this because it's simple. I have no emotional connection to food whatsoever. I don't care. And if I do have that slight cookie sounds good, then I have the fuck cookie, right? I just have the cookie because if you deprive yourself of that, then you're going to be like sitting on the couch sweating, thinking about a cookie. Like, come on, really just have one or two.
And usually you'll get halfway through the cookie. You're like this doesn't sit well with my stomach. When your diet's clean most of the time and you do cheat, like on my cheat days, I really don't cheat that hard because then I feel like shit. Like, I satisfied the psychological urge, but now I physically feel shitty and I don't want to do that. Steve, I'm going to pop, you mentioned injury. I'm going to pop this next question up here. So, and I do want to make a point here. You'll notice guys on the stream, I'll say like you fat guys out there. It's not a judgment thing. It's not like any sort of like hatred in my heart or negative or whatever. I think there's this weird stigma in North America or the English speaking world where it's like there's body positivity, but simultaneously, if you call someone fat, you're bullying them. Like that's the weirdest fucking thing. Fat is just a store of energy on your body. It's a tissue, just like you have muscle, you have bone, you have cartilage, you have fat. It's adipose tissue, and it's just storage of energy. If you start looking at that way, that's another good initial step to take in your fat to fit transformation journey is just understanding that fat is just a store of energy. And these are extra calories. So when I do the intermittent fasting thing, like I'll tell people, I fast for 5 days. Like, oh my God, like, aren't you worried? No, like a pound of fat's roughly 3,500 calories. I can grab sections of my body and be like, oh yeah, like here's a day of energy. Here's a day.
Exactly.
Here's 3 days.
I think about it like
it's always on the belly. Yeah. Like here's 3
I got
days
about
of
2
energy.
weeks before I'm in trouble.
Yeah. So like I do DEXA scans, and when I get to 10% body fat, I'm usually somewhere around like 15. It depends on my lean muscle mass, how it interacts with this figure, but 15 to 17 pounds of like body fat. So people are like, oh, you're fasting for 5 days. I'm like, I have the extra energy stores
so good
on me.
For
and then
you
when
if you can tolerate it mentally.
And I try to do it once a year. I was doing it once a quarter for like 5 days at a time, but now I do it at least once a year now.
So hard to do.
But yeah, you get absolutely shredded doing that. But when people freak out, they're like, oh my God, you're at a steep caloric deficit. It's like, well, I can literally visually see the energy stores on my frame. So once you start thinking that way, fat is not a negative thing. It's just a state of tissue on your body there. So when I say you fat guys out there, I do say it with love.
Well, that's actually a good point because during a 5-day fast, it's like 24 or 36 hours. And I'm not an expert at this, but I've just seen it and heard it a bunch. But your human growth hormone goes up a shit ton. So during that 5-day fast, if you have the body fat, you're going to burn the body fat before you're going to burn the muscle because it's still there. And that's a common misconception. Like, oh, if you undereat, you're going to lose muscle. Yeah. You can what catabolize. I don't say that. Maybe that's the right word. You can catabolize muscle. Yeah. If you're exercising and not fueling your muscles, but during that 5 days,
if you're breaking down the muscle and not giving it the surplus of energy to repair that damaged tissue. But if you're just sitting on your couch not eating for 5 days, I always think of this too, like evolutionarily, whether you fall in that camp or even if you fall like more in the intelligent design camp, I think both of them have credence, to be honest. But whatever camp you fall in, does it make sense for an organism to have evolved over millions of years, or for an omnipotent universal energy source being, aka what people call God or whatever religion you follow? It's all the same thing. We'll get into that in other topics on other shows. But like, okay, let's use the intelligent design principle. Like, okay, me, Jared Scott, I'm going to create this creature called a human being and, populate the earth with them or whatever. But would it make sense when you get like really into like line 1228 of the code and you're like, oh, let's make this organism's body to the point where that if there's caloric restriction, which historically there has always been in all of human history until very recently, there's always been feast or famine. would it make sense to design that organism to where like, okay, you're not eating for a few days. Let's burn all your lean muscle mass first instead of fat. Like, no, fat is an excess store of energy. So that definitely is a misconception. Again, if you're trying to do like deadlift PRs and you haven't eaten in 5 days, then yeah, you're gonna go catabolic.
Probably
You're gonna
not a
lose
good
lot of lean
idea.
muscle mass.
Go for a
Don't do
walk.
that.
Go for a
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
walk. Like, go
Yeah,
easy.
exactly.
Jesus, don't go for a rowing record, for Christ's sake. You're gonna pass out. Fucking
Hey,
nerd.
Steve, I want to pop this question up for
Yeah.
you because I've had this happen a couple
Sure.
times, but I think you mentioned that you had it occur to you recently. So William Sanders asked, something I'm curious about is, what do you do when you're out of commission with an injury? Do you keep cutting or try to hold at the weight you are at?
So I think it's relative to what your goals are, regardless, right? So it depends on what's injured. Number one, if it's an arm
Yep.
injured and you can't
What
do
type of injury is it? Yeah.
shoulders or biceps or whatever, I don't suggest
Lower
doing
back.
biceps.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, no compound lifts.
yeah, no. But if you're like arm is injured or something and you can do like a lot of legs and a lot of cardio, I suggest kind of just doing that rather than doing one arm or one shoulder. Because I mean, let's be real. In 3 months, you're not going to be that out of balance, but you're going to be fucking out of balance. Like, let's be like, that's just the reality of it, right?
Muscle memory
I
is a
would
real
say,
thing too. You'll put that
yeah,
muscle on
totally.
back on very quickly.
Yeah, and it also depends on your body, but I would say if you're the question was, do you keep cutting or try to hold the way you're at? I think for me, because I'm still about, I would say about 20 pounds over what I want to be, just walking around on a regular basis at 237. I want to be walking around 217. I would probably actually take the opportunity in that specific event too fast. I think that depending on the injury and the length of the injury, obviously, if it was like me, I have like arthritis in my foot, so I'm out for like 2 weeks or whatever. That's one thing, because I can still walk around. It just hurts. So I can still do upper body in the gym. So I would probably, and you can even still do cardio if you're off your foot, as far as like a bike or something like that.
Low weight bearing cardio. Swimming is fantastic. Or I like the stationary bike because then I can read or I can write. At some point, I did a video on my channel, like cardio tips for those who hate cardio, or it's titled something like that. And like for me on the stationary bike, I can write music, I can plan my diet for the week, I can look at finances, I can look at goals, I can do YouTube analytics. So I like the stationary bike. So low weight bearing type activities. Again, it depends on the type of injury we're talking about, what sort of physical condition you're in.
And what your
if you're
goals
still
are,
around,
like what your goals are is number one.
Yeah. And
I mean,
William, if you're still around, feel free. The link should be pinned in the top of the chat there. Feel free to join us because I'll have some more questions for you to give you.
Actually,
yeah, to give you very specific pointers. Because, for example, I think a year or so ago, I was with my buddy Moff in Miami, and we were just we're hitting the bags. And right at the very end, I was doing a combo, and I kind of rolled my wrist. And it sucks because I'm a guitar player too, so this drove me nuts for like 6 months.
So you're doing
from my middle finger to my elbow. No, dude, I don't watch porn or beat off. I get laid.
No, this is you playing your guitar with your fucking.
Oh yeah. No, but from like the tip of my middle finger to like my elbow, something was off, and it still kind of clicks from time to time. And so things like adjusted grip of like bicep curls, where like there's some where I like to take them like by the fingertips and then really really go time under tension and squeeze hard coming up. Well, lifts like that go away, and I had to work more with kind of like the cable type training on the bench press. Same thing too, like I had to kind of reposition my hands, go a little wider, which is fine because it can work the width of your chest. So I always tell guys, if you have an injury, depending upon the level of the injury, like for mine, I played baseball, so I've broken every finger and toe in my fucking body, and like you just kind of train around it. You get to the point, start with a girl weight, start with like a child's weight, or a weight that's extremely 50% of what you normally do, just to see if you can actually execute the movement if we're talking about weightlifting, and then work around that injury. I'm also assuming if it's more severe injury, then you do want to check with your primary care physician, whoever your
this is not
occupational therapist is.
Means.
Yeah. So yeah, by any means, if you have, if that's why I'm saying if you did want to come up, we can dive more into the topic as it pertains to you. But for little nagging injuries that, okay, you're not going to mess up anything major. It's just kind of an annoyance. And the more you put strain on it, the longer it's going to take to heal. Like my stupid ring to elbow, whatever tendon or whatever the hell I hit. So you kind of train around that. Now, if it's a more major injury, again, work with whoever is guiding that recovery process, who is a professional in that. But most injuries fall somewhere in between. It's just like, okay, I don't want to re-aggravate the injury or make it worse, and I don't want to reduce the recovery time. But I also don't want to become a fat slob because, as we mentioned earlier, doing things like that come along with, like, you'll get anxious, you'll get depressed, you'll put on the fat, your hormones get out of whack, you'll likely start drinking, you'll be in a highly stressed and inflamed state physically, and you don't want to do that because that will actually hurt your recovery.
Yeah. You're already
Also,
been
so
taking it off.
Steve, I do like your advice. Like, make sure that you do some sort of physical fitness. If that's low impact cardio, like, oh, dude, when I was growing up, my mom used to teach deep water aerobics, and it was mostly elderly people, obese people, or people, a lot of like wounded vets, or like people that are coming out of like some sort of occupational therapy type accidents for recovery, because it's low impact, which means it doesn't put stress on your joints or your flexors or your tendons or any of your muscle tissue, but you're still getting your heart rate up, and there still is enough resistance, which is just the water. And actually they used floaties, and things that are more buoyant are more difficult to keep underwater. So those are what I consider load bearing or impact type cardio activities. Swimming's a fantastic one. Or again, the stationary bike.
Yeah, I would say that just to actually like box in your question and answer it like concisely. If it's a lower body injury, they make cardio machines for your upper body. I know they're goofy, and they're typically for people that are crippled as fuck. But
ones?
if you're crippled, you're crippled. Yeah, they do. They make that. I call it the shadow boxing, like the old school shadow boxing machines. And then that's going to dictate what kind of injury it is. It's going to dictate what you're going to do with it. I would say if you have a broken hip, then I wouldn't say go into a massive calorie deficit, but I would say reduce your carbohydrates to nothing, because that's going to reduce your inflammation overall. Make sure you're getting make sure you're getting your protein 100% to what it needs to be, and then try to fill in with more fats, because that's going to keep your energy up while you're not active.
And
but
your
if
inflammation and insulin low.
And the protein and the I would say more of a ketogenic approach would probably be wise, because you can get the majority of your nutrients from meat and organs. I'm an organ guy. A lot of people don't eat them. Fine, don't do that. It's cool, but if
you can buy them in the capsules, I've done that, or the powdered form, or like I go to Mexican butchers, and I'll have a mixed in liver or organ meat with whatever ground beef I'm doing, and you don't even taste it at that point.
Yeah, sure. And
you're good.
You can mix it whatever. If you just quit being a pussy and just eat it, just eat the liver one way or another. You just figure
you learn to like it. You learn to like it after a while. And guys, if you do any dietary changes, like, it does suck at first, because you're overcoming the food addiction issue. You also have insulin addiction or just sugar addiction, which does all sorts of crazy stuff to your brain. Sugar is like 16 times more addictive than cocaine, I think, is what the last study said. Correct me if I'm wrong, put it down in the comment. I'm just pulling the shit out of my ass, but I did read that at some point. It's a multiple more addictive than the most addictive type drugs. Although I've never known anyone to get addicted to cocaine. I've heard stories, but usually you just do it for a weekend and you're like, all right, fuck that. And you don't touch it again until like the next time someone presents it.
That's true. I don't know about that, but just to finalize that last question, because I am where I am, would keep cutting. If you have a weight loss goal and say you broke your wrist, which would suck totally, there are ways around it in the gym. And even if you're not going to exercise a lot, because I literally just said I haven't legitimately gone to a gym and exercised in like 30 days, but because of my diet, I can preserve muscle. I would say that if it's just a naggy thing and it's upper body, then just get moving a little bit. Just keep your blood flowing in your body, number one. Number two, if you're trying to cut, keep cutting as long as it doesn't affect your injury. Otherwise, maintenance isn't the worst thing you can ever do. The thing that you don't want to do in a situation like that is lose. Like you're already losing by being injured, so you don't want to overtrain it. Number one, you don't want to overtrain it. You don't want to undereat, because it's not going to give you the micronutrients to heal that particular injury. But if you want to keep cutting, I think that a light cut, 200, 300 calories, isn't going to do anything one way or another as far as your recovery is concerned necessarily.
Yep, and guys, for my audio-only listeners, yes, this is synced to all of your major podcast platforms. I brought William up, who was the original poster for the question. So let's get some more follow-up questions.
Yeah,
Hey, William,
sorry about the camera deal. I've got a really old webcam and I need to replace it. So it's not working for me right now. So I'm gonna have to go order a new Logitech or something. But basically, my deal is, I'm pretty sure we know what the injury is. It's probably just a muscle pull, and I went to an orthopedic doctor to have them look, because I thought it was a rib injury initially, but then
those
now,
are nasty, Those hurt.
it's thankfully it was it. I probably have bruised ribs because I do jujitsu, and I went. We were doing body lock stuff, and most of the people couldn't get all the way around me because their legs were short. So they were squeezing right into the rib cage there, and it was not fun. But basically I did 8 classes in 4 days, which may have been a lot of jujitsu for me.
That's a workout.
I mean,
I'm soaked in sweat after a session. Jesus.
So one of them is the more technical beginner class, because I'm a white belt, and I'm still trying to learn, which this isn't helpful because I haven't been able to go for a bit. But I tried swimming, and unfortunately it's not been the best because all the body rotation kind of messes with that.
I could see
that shoulder, upper back area.
Well, you got that lower back. You got your lat that comes out to the side, depending on whether it's left or right. It's all the same, right? And you're reaching, and when you're reaching over, like you're reaching forward, that stretches all that mess out right there. So you might have a muscle pull. That makes sense.
Yeah, I also I've been I was a swimmer in high school, so it didn't take me very long to figure out what was going on. Yeah,
absolutely.
Hey, I was going to ask you, what are your stats, if you don't mind sharing? I know people can't see you in terms of like body fat percentage, height, weight, and then where are you at physically, and what are your goals?
Yeah, I'm probably in that like super duper average phase. I'm like between 18 and 20%, depending. I haven't made a lot of progress recently, mainly because I've been out of commission. And I'm 6 foot even, and then I'm 210, 209, 210, 208.
Pretty much got my body type.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a bit wider of a person, so
that's how I'm
I think that's kind of, I figure my ideal weight is probably 190. So
you might even be off by by the sounds of it. If you're 18 to 20%, I think your ideal. It depends on your version of ideal, right? So this is all a thought, but I think you might be closer to like 182 to 185 is probably your sweet spot to be like relatively lean. Whereas like
when I'm 185 at 5'11", I am shredded. I have veins across my abs. So.
Well,
it depends on your lean body mass or your lean muscle mass. So do you have a muscular physique too, or where you like sounds like you do some sort of weight bearing or impact type exercise, or whether that be weights or what have you?
I mean, I really need to work on my weight exercise, which is, I can only really do legs right now, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Well, I could do legs, and then my right side of my body look like
lopsided motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say like the Chargers from Left 4 Dead. If you
no overhead extensions with barbells.
0. Yeah. Well, No. I've been doing, because I've got a guy who's kind of mentored me. Really, I've been doing keto because he's told me this is the way you cut. And it's really helped me out significantly. At one point I was like 260. And I've made a lot of progress. Still got a lot to go.
Well, that's good, dude. I mean, that's 50 pounds. That's still.
Yeah.
It's a bag of dog food, big old bag of dog food.
Literally, yeah. It's great
Yeah.
too.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I pick up something 50 pounds now, I'm like, I cannot believe that was on my body. Like literally, it's just like, bleh. Like, whoa,
Well, that's why
that's
most fat
crazy.
guys are strong. Like my legs are huge, and I always tell guys on my channel, I train my legs like girls because otherwise they'll blow up, and I just
Yeah.
can't fit jeans. I don't have a fat waist. I'm usually like size 30, 31 based on the manufacturer, but I have like 26 to 28-inch quads based on what I'm doing in the
Sure.
gym. So, and I think it's a theory. I don't know if they've done research on this, but I think it's because I spent 17 years of my life overweight. Carrying at peak fatness, I was carrying around at least 100 extra pounds of weight. So that's 2 giant bags of dog food. All of a sudden you lose this weight. Like you're still going to have some very well-developed legs and lower body in general after having put that stress on your body.
Yeah,
I think it
lower
kind of stunted my growth too.
Lower body has always been kind of my my forte over upper
That's really
body.
interesting because nobody has a lower body forte. Nobody had like, and I mean nobody isn't like the majority.
Former
of people.
fat guys do.
Yeah, that's true.
Something.
I tend to, dude. Even
I've been kind of like I was kind of overweight. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Oh no, you're good.
No, that's absolutely. Yeah, I like if I had if I just came up with a rib injury somehow right now, I would honestly just. Well, I already cut carbs in general, anyways. I still eat them. Like, no, let's be real. I still eat them sometimes, but it's very sparing and it's far apart.
Yeah.
And it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, and it's just kind of in passing. And but I don't sit down and eat a whole fucking loaf of bread. Let's be real. So I would completely cut carbohydrates out, and what you sound like you've already done. I don't know that I would necessarily care about fat, especially if I'm 18, because I'm 18 to 20% at 30 pounds heavier than you. So I'm probably a little bit denser muscle wise, but still pretty much the same thing, right? As far as like body shape. I would not even necessarily worry about taking in a lot of fat. I would be more concerned about hitting my protein numbers because you need the protein to repair whatever the fuck's going on over there muscle wise. And then whatever calories you have left, if you're counting that deeply, like a lot of people do keto, just kind of eat until they're not hungry. If you're counting that deeply, then fill in whatever else with whatever extra calories you have. I would do fat. But I mean, with a rib injury, it might not be the worst idea to be in a calorie deficit. I don't think that's going to destroy you one way or the other, as long as it's not like broken ribs or something and you're going through surgery and you've got to be a certain weight or whatever circumstances that, I don't like, I'm just a guy on the internet, right? But that's kind of where I would focus is animal-based ketogenic diet.
Do you do any intermittent fasting? Because we touched on that topic earlier, and there are benefits to that in terms of your body going to autophagy. And then also, Steve mentioned, I can find a study and do a screen share here in a second if we want to get to it. But in terms of your HGH, your human growth hormone, that goes up through the roof once you get deeper into a fast. I believe it's at 18 hours or so that it does that. So
something like
normally
that.
I like to get those natural. Yeah, I like to get those natural HGH spikes, and then to offset it, at the. So I time my HGH spikes naturally, and then 12 hours before is when I do a maintenance dose of HGH for anti-aging and just general health benefits there. But that might help you out too, because if you've never done HGH, that is a very, very powerful substance that makes you recover like that. I mean, even like Steve, I mentioned I was in Cancun last week and drank a little too hard the first night. Well, you just up the dose on the HGH a little bit, and you feel just like new quite quickly. That and vitamin compound shot, and you're good to go pretty fast. But William, have you looked at intermittent fasting or any other dietary type protocols that might help you?
So I actually kind of did intermittent fasting to lose the 50 pounds initially, because I was actually in a different career at the time, and I wanted to get in better shape. So why I say kind of is because I did drink coffee, usually with sugar, not a lot of sugar, but some.
Enough to mention it.
Swap it out for stevia. There's a good little hack.
Well, I've been doing monk fruit recently for that.
Oh, I like monk fruit too. They have stevia and monk fruit down here in Mexico, and yeah, I put that on everything.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Although I haven't really found a good replacement for the cream yet in the coffee.
Goat milk.
Oh, you can do almond milk works for you too.
Or heavy
sugar-free
cream.
almond milk.
Or heavy cream is what I use.
I gotcha.
If I drink coffee.
All right. I guess I really haven't used that kind of replacement. It's always been like the low sugar or
do you have a Kroger
no
near you?
Oh yeah, of course. They're
Kroger has
everywhere
the
here.
keto. Kroger has a keto milk, I believe what it's called. It's like a protein fortified keto milk that I buy when I'm in the States, and that works really well. I think it has like 1 gram of fat per cup. It's something low, like 45 calories, and it's pretty much just all protein.
All right.
So yeah,
that's a substitute I use in the States.
I go shopping for my meal preps on Friday, so I'll definitely be looking at that tomorrow.
Yeah, so we use in my
it's
house.
Kroger Carb Master. Look at the Kroger Carb Master, and they have a whole line of foods.
Sure, and so just to clarify, I say goat milk or whatever. I use goat milk because I'm dairy sensitive. So milk in general is not going to. Of course, milk's got a little bit of carbohydrates, but I use just a little bit's not going to hurt you. And then those sugar-free syrups, like the syrups you get at the coffee shop, I tend to just to make the creamer thing. Yeah, and then I just if I drink coffee, which is rarely anymore, I'll use a frother or something to dial that in, whatever that is, and then you get the little bit of sugar, and you can kind of. I don't necessarily recommend it if you're worried about like the ingredients, right? Because aspartame, acesulfame, potassium, the sucralose, all that stuff. I'm sure there's effects, but you see me drinking a diet soda right now, so. Obviously, I'm not that worried. I
slam the diet soda, yeah.
Oh, dude, all the time.
It's about mitigation of risk. Drinking diet soda is less harmful for you than being 100 pounds overweight and dying before you're 50.
Or drinking a bunch of beer or whatever. And if you want to get it even tighter, then drink sparkling water or whatever. I just haven't got there yet. But yeah, I would say if you want to recreate that creamer, I would say some sort of like heavy cream. Heavy cream's really popular in the keto community. And then a sugar-free syrup of whatever, caramel or French vanilla or Irish cream or whatever you can find. We get ours at Target, and it's just like a little $5 bottle, and it lasts forever because that syrup is literally syrup. So yeah.
All right, cool. I'll definitely give that a shot. That's kind of been the big hole because I've got other. I just try to get creative with my meals when I plan them on Friday. I plan 2 regular meals, and then I've got one that I make and then throw in the freezer. I've got like a keto lasagna that gives me like that I use deli meat for instead of the pasta.
Oh, that's interesting.
Really?
I've never even heard of that.
I've never thought about that. That was my next question. What do you use the noodle? Well, yeah. I'm really big on recreating unhealthy foods, but in healthy versions. And it's really all about recreating the texture. And then the flavor, you can do that. There's salt substitutes, sugar substitutes. And then it's really all about your seasonings. And if you get those 3 things down, then you can make anything you want that you desire.
That's 100% true.
And you can get it pretty close to what you normally like. And again, you'll get to the point where you become so healthy that when you do eat the full fat, full sugar, full bullshit, I call it like slop, stuff you shouldn't be putting in your body. Oh, you feel it, and you immediately go back to your diet because you physically feel ill.
It's crazy just how hard that hits you. It like every single time I go off diet, ooh, it's not good. Usually there's some alcohol involved for sure, but
oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, you don't say, oh, alcohol, fuck.
Oh, yeah, you don't say.
Yeah, like doing both at the same time is probably not the best idea. I usually try to keep it to one or the other.
Although when I went to Cancun, I wasn't quite at 6-pack level, so I was probably like 11-12% body fat. I had the etching of the abs, but a few days of just not eating and then chain smoking cigarettes, drinking, partying, staying up all night, being super dehydrated, and then doing other uppers, let's just say that, Cancun, use your imagination. By day 3, I was like, wow, I'm shredded. I mean, I was in a horrible state physically. I probably wasn't in a very like general health state at that point, but yeah, that'll definitely do it to you.
Yeah.
Oh, I went on a tangent there, and I forgot what I was going to ask you at that point. So aside from what does the rest of your diet look like? So you said it's primarily ketogenic, some intermittent fasting. What does your day-to-day look like now?
Nowadays I do. My mentor kind of got me on the 5 super small meals a day diet. At one point I was doing that, but now I'm just kind of on the 3. I do like 2 small snacks, and then I do 3 smaller meals a day, cuz part of what I always need to be eating. It's fat kid issues, you know.
Yeah.
But if I have certain checkpoints, right? I think that's yeah. I think just having certain checkpoints where I like eat something. Like today, I did pistachios, uh, and I
Oh, those
had
are good.
2. Oh yeah, especially since like you crack the shell and it like kind of controls how much of it you eat, because you have to
Mhm.
crack open the shell to get the pistachio, and then you're less hungry because you're eating slower. Um, but
That's a big tip. My entire I picked up that tip when I was 17, and I lost all the body fat in 1 year before I even started putting on major muscle mass. But to this day, I still do that. People always remark on how extremely slow I eat compared to regular people. And that's why I do the 1 meal a day too, because I eat so slow that, like, okay, if I have to do task switching, if I have to stop what I'm doing work wise or whatever else I have going on in my life, prepare a meal, and then sit down. It'll take me 40 minutes for an hour to nibble away at it. I eat like a rabbit or a squirrel. Like when I have girls come over, I'm eating cookies. They're just like, it's like you just kind of like a squirrel, and they always make fun of me. But when you do eat slower, it's like, okay, well, now if I calculate this out, if I'm doing 5 to 6 small meals a day, then I'm spending all day eating. I'm either thinking about
Literally,
food, preparing food, eating food, or cleaning up after having eaten said food. So the 1 meal a day, it's like, and I get to also, you mentioned the former fat kid, which I love this term. I eventually want to write a book on it, like the psychology of like being a former fat kid. My sister brought this up last time we hung out. She's like, "Hey, we were trained, since we were all fat, my siblings and I as kids, like we were always trained to finish everything on your plate. But if your parents aren't dietitians, or if they don't know how to serve young children properly, then they're just gonna cook whatever, divvy it up equally, and then you have to eat it all. And then it's a wonder, like we never ate bad when I was a kid, but we just had just sheer abundance of food, which is that caloric surplus, which do that your entire childhood, and all of a sudden you're fat. So I like the OMAD thing, because when I lost all the weight, I still had like a negative body image to where I'm like, all right, I got to kill the fat kid. I have to kill the fat kid. I have to kill the fat kid. And now I'm like, no, let's take a step back, Jaron. You have to feed the fat kid. And doing the 1 meal a day, like I get to feast every single night, even if I'm going really, really calorically restricted. I'm normally somewhere in the range of like 1,700 to 2,200 calories. I think my TDEE is 3,300. But there will be days, I'll have a couple beers, or I'll go to a buffet or whatever. So at the end of the week, I'm still in a caloric deficit enough to where I can maintain leanness, or lose 1 to 1.5 pounds of body fat. If I'm doing a slower cut, maybe 2.5 pounds of body fat. If I'm doing more of a aggressive cut, but doing the slow eating combined with the intermittent fasting, I get to feast every single day. And as long as you hit your protein first, after you eat 200 grams of protein in one sitting, or 150 or 175, whatever it looks like for you, you're going to be really full. And then you fill in the rest of those calories with carbs and or fats based on what you're doing, usually more on the fat side. Well, I'm already stuffed. Like physically, I'm full. There's not a lot more room in there. So I'll make like an almond flour, unsweetened chocolate chip cookies, Stephen with stevia or monk fruit, have 1 or 2 of those, and I'm done. I'm done for the night, but I'm still in my window of where I want to be from a caloric deficit standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same. I would say I do the same thing, but I think that I kind of go like, because I do 2 meals a day typically. I do it in like probably like a 4 or 5 hour time window. I'll eat like an early, mostly because when I eat like meat, I just chop it up into chunks and eat it like a barbarian kind of. So I'll eat like an egg, and like we call them slutty eggs, or eggs and butter. I'll eat like 6 eggs and whatever, and it'd be like 600 calories, or however that ends up kind of landing itself out. And then maybe like 4 hours later, 3 hours later, I'll eat 2 pounds or a kilo of mincemeat, or chuck steak, or ribeye, or whatever beef is in the refrigerator. That's kind of that's kind of the way that I do it. So I don't quite have the OMAD thing going on. Once I get hungry, I'm hungry. Like it's not, I'm never hungry, but once I'm hungry, I just eat. Otherwise I can't think. But yeah, it's, that's how I've managed to lose as much as I have. I mean, 47 pounds in 70 days or so. Well, not 47, maybe like 25.
I did want to touch on that because Steve, at an earlier point, and William, you alluded to this also. So I think that now might be a good time to bring this topic up where you're normally in a caloric deficit. And as long as I've known you, you're kind of like me, like you don't eat a lot. But when you and I used to live together for a bit, we drank quite a bit. So I was always kind of bloated. I wasn't like fat, but I was always kind of puffy. And I think your recent weight gain, that was mostly booze related, right? Which is the
100%. Oh, it was 100%.
Does all sorts of nasty shit to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so what I was talking about with Jesse earlier, just to kind of like full circle this conversation is I gained a lot of weight around stressful events in my life, i.e. coming out of the military, i.e. graduating high school, becoming an adult, losing a relationship, a business failing, something like that. I always kind of yo-yoed 10, 15 pounds that way. And what follows that is what you would consider stress relieving activities like drinking alcohol, right? And I went on just recently, because I'm not going to go back, and if you want to hear my origin story, it's at the beginning, but I went on a 2.5 year, I would say, I call it a binge. I'll call it a binge. It was like a 2.5 year binge. I would drink between 6 and 15 drinks a day. I would say that's a pretty big average, but on average. But I was still eating carnivore. I was relatively often, right? I would say like 70% versus 95. But when I was drinking, 2 o'clock in the morning came around. 2 o'clock in the morning came around, and I would eat whatever the fuck was in the refrigerator, because by the time you flip that light switch, it's over. Like you can eat whatever. So not only was I eating the kilo of meat and 6 eggs and beef liver and all that shit and getting my 2,000 calories, but I was in an excess 1,200 just from alcohol on average. I say 12 drinks. And, there's a couple of us here that have been through that. Doing that 1,200.
Some of the drinks, those are non-sugary drinks. That's the average for like that's a pure shot of spirit or a beer. And most beers are way more than 100 calories.
I was a seltzer guy. I was a seltzer guy. Yeah. I drank a lot of seltzers because you go out playing golf, doing whatever. And somehow I managed. I did the math one or two times, and at 12 drinks per day, 7 days a week, which was, I would say it was 7 days a week average wise. That is 94 drinks a week. Times that by 400 minus 16.
That is 2.5 to 3 pounds of pure fat gain based on the energy surplus. Again, using that caloric calories in versus calories out equation, because the opposite, when you cut, if you want to go really aggressive, then you need to be like in a 9,000 to 10,000 calories per week deficit. And that's usually about as aggressive as I go, because I don't want to put undue stress on my system. And that's just me not planning my cut right. Or someone's like, hey, do you want to go to Cancun in 2 weeks? You're like, oh shit, like I'm kind of flabby. Like, yeah, let's go. And I gotta tighten it up.
It was roughly 38,000 calorie surplus just from alcohol per month. Times that by 12. You can see how that gets pretty fucking ridiculous pretty fast. Right.
Yeah, because you got up there pretty quick in the course of a year or so, but you're coming down pretty quick too. Since
And so right, and so I'm just giving you like the exacerbate, like the actual numbers. But I was really, really, I worked out. I somehow managed to work out while getting completely fucked up every day. Went and played golf.
I did that too. I never missed the gym, even in Cancun. I was dragging dick the whole time I was there. But
I should have gained 100 pounds. I should have gained 100 pounds from that. But my activity was so high. I was doing so much in that time frame that it reduced.
You only gained 80. No, I'm kidding.
Well, no, I came from in 2020. I was 232 pounds, and my max ever, and this was like max was 280. So I gained 50 pounds in about 2 years.
And it slowly creeps up on you, doesn't it?
Well, it slowly creeps up. Isn't that hard when you're pounding fucking
those couple beers a day or 12 beers a day?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And this was going through 5 days a week in the gym. This was walking, 10,000 plus steps a day, all of it, just constantly exercising. And I was still slowly putting on, a pound a week base, or a half a pound a week every week for 2 years. And that's what people don't see, that even in like an isolated environment, say you just go out for happy hour, 3 drinks 3 days a week. That's over a pound of fat per month. If you're not burning it off through exercise, that's a pound of fat per month. Times that by 2 years. I mean, you can gain 25 pounds and not even notice it. Like, you just look down and you're like, wow, I can't see my dick anymore. Like, what the fuck?
That's all like intermittent fasting, because if I realize, okay, I've eaten a little too much this week, or like, if you track your calories enough, you were able to start doing this in your head. You just kind of know where the count is at all times. So there'll be weeks where like, all right, I need to take a day or two off from eating. Well, my TDEE, again, which is totally daily expenditure of energy. Usually when I fast, like if I go multiple days without eating, I won't actually do like any weight bearing exercise. I might go for a walk or something like that. So my TDE is probably a little lower, but for a safe round number, I'd be like, okay, for every day I don't eat, that's, maybe 3/4 of a pound or a pound of body fat that I'm losing. Cause again, body fat's just a store of energy. And that helps out. But again, what Steve's saying on the inverse of the equation, when you're like, okay, well, I'll have a couple beers a day, and then before you know it, you're like, all right, I'm going to caloric surplus of 3,600. Most guys don't have TDEEs like Steve and I. Most guys are usually around 2,000 calories or so, maybe 2,200 calories based on your activity level. And again, if you're bigger, if you have more muscle mass, your TDE could be higher. But just those extra couple beers a day, or that extra cookie after dinner or whatever, well, that compounds. And at the end of the week, you're like, all right, you have enough to essentially put on a pound of body fat per week. And I'm guilty of it. I do that often. I like my desserts. Sometimes I'm not as clean on the diet, but at the end of the week, I'm like, all right, I just won't eat. Like, I'll eat a big meal Sunday and I just won't eat again until Tuesday night. And then I'm good. But by Wednesday, I'm usually right back on track.
Right. But most guys, and I say most guys, most people in general, right? They just don't have the discipline for that. And I think that it's just like that mental muscle. Like, you just build that mental muscle over time, because early on when I was doing intermittent fasting, I was struggling to get to noon. I was eating at like 6 p.m. and I was struggling to get to noon the next day so I could go from 12 to 6. But also I'd kind of done that ish my whole life, but I was eating carbohydrates too. So it wasn't like now where like I had a smaller meal earlier, maybe 700 calories or something like that. And I'm not miserable, right? Versus a lot of people are waking up in the morning, they're having, a couple pieces of toast and some cereal, not eating any protein, not getting there's nothing going on. Basically, you're just eating fucking straight energy that's probably going to be stored as fat, because you're not going to do shit. You're going to go to work and you're going to sit down. And then lunchtime comes around and you're fucking starving. Like, your insulin's gone through the roof. You've ridden the roller coaster. Barnum and Bailey circus just showed up. You're fucking cranking back a sub sandwich or something like that. And then, okay, cool. Well, you're full. Now you're full. Now you're tired because your insulin's through the roof. Now you go 5-6 hours, right? And now you're fucking miserable and you're pissed off because you just had to finish your work day out and go home. And now you're tired because your insulin's already crashed, but you're starving, right? And then you go home to your old lady making spaghetti. Maybe you ate 100 grams of protein throughout the day through some fucking random chemical-based cereal protein plus some of the deli meat at lunch. Then she makes her spaghetti with 2 pounds. You eat fucking 1,500 calories there. Not only did you just not have any sort of nutrition whatsoever, but you just ran your body through the fucking ringer. Like, you just wrecked yourself all day long. Your hormones are completely off. You can't sleep because now you're starving at 9 p.m. because you ate at 6. It's an absolute mess. I mean, that's how normal people eat all the time. Right? That's how everybody, and I say everybody being the majority of America, eats. That's where we're like 60% obesity.
It's funny. It's called the Standard American Diet in bodybuilding circles, which is acronym is SAD, and I think that is aptly named.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. William, go ahead.
So you were talking about the stress eating and the stress drinking specifically, because that was actually my major weight gain was actually during the pandemic. And I gained
mine too, I guess. I didn't think
probably about 30 of my 50 pounds, because I was already like overweight, and then I made the problem worse by locking myself inside and then drinking to de-stress from my job that I didn't really like at
which
the
is
time,
completely
so.
fucking preposterous when you think about what alcohol does to your body. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
exactly.
the exact opposite. Like it's not. You couldn't. And what's great is I thought the same. I think the same way that, or I thought the same way that you did to some degree. I think actually for me it was. I was going through a circumstance that I was going through something. I don't want to call it a. I don't know. I don't even know if that would be the right word. But I was going through an event in my life at that time that was perpetuated by alcohol. It was extended beyond, the pain was extended beyond what it needed to be extended, right? Like you were already going through shit and you just put yourself through more shit. And that for me lasted more, I mean, what do you say, a couple years through the pandemic. Through the pandemic, I went from relatively healthy and 230-ish pounds to 275 to 285, depending on how much water I was holding or how much booze I drank the night before. And you're really just playing Russian roulette with your next day. And I mean, dude, there's people that drink like that for 2 years or a year or whatever, and then they just don't wake up one day.
Yeah.
They just don't wake up. I mean, it's not like, I'm not gonna be dramatic about it, but like your heart rate variability goes to shit, and you're typically like chronically dehydrated. Your electrolytes are all fucked up. And one night you just drink too much and your heart stops.
Yep.
Because you've thrown your body so fucking out of balance that you don't even know. Like, and people don't realize that. It's like there's people that drink daily, and I mean, like I'm assuming you drank daily too, based on what you were saying.
Easily.
Yeah, I would rip through a handle of Captain in 3 days or 2 days, and I wouldn't drink all day most of the time unless I had a gnarly hangover and I was trying to get rid of it. I would drink from like 7 p.m., 8 p.m., wait 5 o'clock somewhere type style.
Till you pass out.
I mean, yeah, within an hour of me passing out, and there were multiple times where I would actually go to bed with booze next to me, and I was just telling William, like,
I lived that life for a while too. When you visited me in Houston, I was going through a real rough time there. And in my head, I'm like, okay, for a year or two I was doing it, but it was really only a few months where I really let myself go. But I was just, the world was on my shoulders. I had 3 major life altering events that I was dealing with at the same time. And if any of those had occurred at any time, any person would be stressed out. And like, for me, shit always happens in threes, at least at that point of my life. I no longer have those types of things occur because I've, rapidly transformed my life, and I've spent a lot of time and effort and done that diligently. But at that phase in that chapter, when you saw me in Houston, I was doing 12 beers a night and then 2 tall boys to top it off. And usually that was about the point where my stomach started feeling woozy. And then like, I didn't want the room to spin because then the sleep would not happen. But eventually, like it was at that threshold, right, to where I started feeling kind of like getting the bubbly guts, like, oh yeah, like physically I can't handle this. And then that was just to sleep. That was just to drown out all the shit and anxiety and all of the external factors that were out of my control, but required my immediate attention at all times. It was just to drown out all of that noise and fall asleep, so to speak. Although if you have alcohol in your bloodstream, you're not sleeping. You're not getting restful, regenerative sleep. You're passed out. I think language is important here when we talk about these topics, but you're passed the fuck out. You wake up like, and you get to a point you're not even hungover anymore. You're like, oh, I'm a functioning alcoholic. Like I can pound 14 beer. Well, they're 2 tall boys, so like 14 to 16 beers a night. That's just to fall asleep. And like, I never got behind at work. I was actually so stressed out that work was a distraction too, to where I went balls deep into work because I just didn't want to deal with all the bullshit. And I think a lot of guys fall into that as part of your night routine. Like, okay, you're responsible. Like maybe you're a dad, you're a business owner, you're an employee, whatever it is you got going on in your life, you still hit the gym. But like for me, my shutdown period's usually around 8 p.m. or so. And that's where I have my nightly routine. I'll light up a spliff. I'll pull out a guitar, usually have a girl over. I'll serenade her. And then we have fun until it's time to, put some bullshit on Netflix and fall asleep. That's my nightly routine now. But there's always been a nightly routine. You just replace that for a lot of guys, and most guys find themselves in this situation with the alcohol, whether it's, I think you said 7 o'clock, 8 p.m. For me, it was 9 p.m. when it becomes ritualistic. You pop that first top and something happens to you. Something in your brain goes off. You're like, oh, okay, like, all right, we're gonna do this.
We used to go out after work and get fucking smashed, and then go get food and go home. And
that first drink hits your lips, and like for me, I've got the alcoholic gene, so something lights up in your brain, like, oh, it's on, like it's time.
Yeah.
Now we're doing this.
For those people on video, like this is a perfect. I'm going to show you guys something because it's on my phone. The period where you see 4 dots is after, and we were talking about heart rate variability and how people like go through the shit and like stop breathing basically because they've shut their bodies down so bad. But this is an accurate depiction of how drinking affects your recovery. Where you see the 4 dots is the 3 months that I haven't taken in any alcohol whatsoever, and the other dots are the days that I drank every single day. You see what I'm saying, Jaron? Yep.
Yeah,
that's what it does.
Yeah, your internet's kind of laggy.
Oh, it's just
yeah, at least on my end.
Yeah, it might be on your end. But yeah, in that one period of time, I had. What's up?
What's the deviation there? What percentage are we talking from like the on average, I guess, that you're up compared to when you were drinking?
The deviation. I mean, you saw what I was looking at. So, in the last 90 days, roughly, I have had 4 days of lack of recovery, and that was due to me working my dick off and then only sleeping 3 hours and having to get up and do shit, versus me sleeping, because I could show you, we could do the various sleep performance, whereas I slept the right length of time and still woke up in the red. In that 6-month period, I had 39 times, 39 times where I had zero recovery. I have a 70 to 80% sleep, whatever you call that.
Sleep score or whatever.
Yeah, it's the time in bed, basically falling asleep. So they say that I need to sleep based on my data from the last year for 8 hours and 10 minutes a night. Okay, so my sleep, I slept about 6 hours and 45 minutes on average. So that would be like 70%. So that's why I have a lot of yellows. But with the red, I had 39 days out of the last 6 months, out of the last 180 that were completely in the red, under 33% recovery, 35 of which were when I was on alcohol.
Yeah, it ruins your sleep. Absolutely destroys
you. Absolutely, yeah, it ruins you. Go ahead.
You mentioned these guys that, one night, if you do it, and it doesn't take long, it only takes a few years if you're doing this shit daily, where one night you just don't wake up. But, at 33% recovery rate, you extrapolate that over a long period of time. Plus, usually there's alcohol masks other issues like the lack of movement in your life and the anxiety and the depression or lack of most guys that drink, you go overweight, so they can become diabetic, you get an inflamed liver. So all of these things that compound with your system, that it just puts so much stress on your system. Like Steve said, just one night, like it just stops. It just can't anymore. It's like redlining a car, like grinding through the fucking gears, like getting real heavy on the clutch and just beating the shit out of it all the time. It's like, yeah, there's supercars and stuff made for it, but like try that with the Toyota Corolla and see how long it lasts. That's a good, reliable car. But if you just pound the shit out of it all the time, you're not going to get that 100,000 miles or whatever they guarantee or put the warranty on it for. It's just not going to happen. You're going to break that system down a lot sooner than it needs to be.
Right. So, I mean, and from like a longevity perspective, you figure a guy who's drinking at the rate that I was drinking on average will die before 60 years old. 58 years old.
Obese people do too. You don't see many obese people that are over 60.
Yeah, right. But 58 years old was life expectancy. Now, somebody who doesn't drink, which I don't intend on drinking at all for another like 290 days or whatever it is, that goes up like 22 years. I mean, it's absurd the amount of time that it goes up. It's between 20 and like 25 years for life expectancy just from alcohol alone. And that doesn't even include seed oils or overeating or lack of exercise or anything like that. Just not drinking completely. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, and I work partially in the insurance business, and that's what underwriters look at is they'll look at, you know, how many beers do you drink a week, and if it's more than 3, they're like, should we actually give this guy coverage?
Everyone lies about that, right? I remember when I was drinking a lot, the doctor's like, how many drinks do you have on average per month? And it's like, you know, like the biggest range, like 10 plus drinks a month. I'm like, that's a day. What are you talking
I
about?
don't.
I'm like, oh,
Yep.
2 or 3 a month. Like they can look at you and tell you're full of shit.
Like really blow
Yep.
face? Nice.
Yeah,
Quit eating McDonald's, fatty.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
you just see it come out. Go ahead.
But I had a quick question on a different topic for both of you, I guess.
Yeah.
But so when you're planning out your meals, do you plan out the whole week? Like as far as calories are concerned, are you like
we're
looking at
completely
the
different.
whole week? And
Yep.
because you were mentioning how you'll skip meals and things like, or skip days eating, right?
Right. Sometimes.
Yep. Steve, you can go first because my system's kind of complex.
Yeah. For me, I don't really think about it that much anymore because I've been eating pretty much the same 10 things for so long that if I was by myself, I would walk into the grocery store and I would order 10 to 14 pounds of taco meat, right? It's like ground chuck or whatever that you put on carne asada tacos. So 10 pounds of carne asada in 3-pound packs, or I guess 12 pounds. And I would eat a pound and a half of that roughly. And like I said, I don't measure or anything like that. So it could be 1.5 to 2 pounds. I would eat 1.5 to 2 pounds of that per day. And we always have 3 or 4 dozen eggs in the fridge, and there's always butter to throw in that too, just for cooking. So for me, I don't think I planned a fucking meal intentionally in has to be 6 months. Unless I was like trying to do something like Jaron would do, or like, oh, I would like to make this recipe. I don't think that I maybe have done that twice in a year, right? So I don't really place much value on that necessarily. It doesn't even really spike my curiosity because even before when I was eating like shit, I was eating, McDonald's and Wendy's because I was traveling a lot. I was just kind of buzzing through drive-thrus, grabbing whatever and bouncing. Gas station food. Oh man, I was all up on the gas station food in my 20s. So
Beef
good
jerky
sometimes.
Or cheese is pretty much all you can eat there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 100 now. Definitely, I definitely don't buy food at the gas station usually anymore. I'll grab a Casey's pizza or something like that every once in a while. But overall, no. I spend on average probably 0 minutes planning my meals. I just eat what I eat, and it's the same thing generally every day. And I just do that because I know that it's going to give me the results I want. And the way that I eat is so strict that, it kind of keeps me in frame. If I eat kind of weird, then I'm going to have a fucking dessert, and then I might have an ice cream that I shouldn't be eating because I'm lactose intolerant, and then all kinds of shit happens. So as long as I stay in my lane, I'm good.
That's kind of how I do it too now, like for a very simplistic version where for most of my nights, like I have no idea what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight. I've already had 50 grams of protein, which is, I do that before pre-workout, put a scoop of creatine in there just so I don't go catabolic, if I'm doing a little more intense workouts. My body has been fat adapted for years. There is a process to do that. You might get the keto flu at first, but once you're able to do that, I think, and I do that at least once a year. I'll go full keto for a month a year just to make sure my body stays optimized from a fat adaptation standpoint. And that means your body can effectively flip that switch from going from glucose-based energy sources to your ketone-based or your body fat as an energy source. You only have to do it once. And then as long as you go into like keto every now and then at certain intervals amongst the year, you don't have to experience that keto flu over again. Usually. So sometimes like if I'm really exerting myself, and like in Cancun, I found at a point, like we didn't do a lot of eating. We'd get up and have like a huge omelet with a bunch of bacon and sausage, because at that point in that environment, it's a calorie question. And I do the same thing at music festivals. Like you're partying, you're out and about, you're meeting people, you're being the life of the party, you're being Mr. Socialite over here, you're raving to the music until the sun comes up, and then you wake up and do it again. Usually I'll do like kind of just like real like fattier, heavier animal-based products for that. And it got to a point about day 3, I felt like kind of had a lingering headache, and it wasn't an alcohol like hangover type headache, because I didn't drink my second day there at all. It was like kind of the keto flu type coming on. I'm like, oh, when's the last time I went through the fat adaptation process? But I'm at the point now, since I went into it, since I went into keto inadvertently last week, so we're like, okay, it's just reminding your body like, hey, this fat, it's an energy source too. So I'll do a 2 scoops of protein, the scoop of whatever is on the bottle. It's like a gram. I don't even know what it is. Just the pre-scoop of creatine, just to make sure I don't go catabolic, and then let my fat fuel the workout. And then at the end of the night, so I'm 50 grams of protein in. I believe it's like 100, 120 per scoop. I usually do like an isolate, or I'll do like an animal, even sometimes organ meat type protein powder. Yes, you can find those. They're hard to find. Usually you can get them on Amazon. Here in Mexico, actually, beef protein is pretty common. They eat every part of the animal here, and if that part of the animal doesn't sell, they just grind it up and put it into a protein powder, and it doesn't taste any different than your typical whey protein. So I'll do like a beef protein for that. But like I said, for tonight, I have no idea what I'm going to eat, but I already know in my head what that looks like. And then even on Uber Eats, I'm doing a few live streams tonight, so I'll be running pretty late. Well, on Uber Eats, you kind of already know your meals. At one point, I sat down and calculated this for the first time when I was experiencing this neighborhood I live in, or what's available on the app. You order the food, you disassemble it, you put it on your food scale, like, okay, this sandwich or this soup has this many grams or this many ounces of protein. Down here, everything's metric, so we do it in grams. So most of the restaurants I have saved in my Uber Eats, you can buy individual portions of 100 grams of chicken or beef or shrimp or whatever the hell you want. So I'll order a soup, or I'll order a salad, or I'll order a sandwich, and then I'll do the add-ons to what I need. Usually I end up at the end of the night eating 400 grams of chicken or lean beef or shrimp or fish or whatever. Usually I go leaner on the animal protein. So I want, if I buy ground beef, I want it to be as close to 99% lean as possible. And then I fill that fat back in with good fats. I'm a big fan of coconut oil, avocado oil, any of your good fats, no seed oils, no vegetable oils. Don't put any of that shit ever in your body. You can do ghee. A lot of people like that. I have a stick of Kerrygold Irish butter in my fridge, but a lot of times I'll try to minimize the fat in my food, because I like desserts, and for desserts you can do all sorts of keto cool type shit. So peanut butter based desserts are awesome. I buy sugar-free Jello vanilla pudding packets. You mix that one part, some like make the Jello pudding like you normally would, mix one part of that to one part of Greek yogurt. And then for a crust, I'll grind up, I'll take like some almond flour, do some peanut butter, maybe a little banana if I want like some carbs, that is fructose, but every now and then I'll do a banana for potassium. Take potassium supplements too, so it's not necessary. You'll notice in my diet, there's not a lot of sugar at all, even if it's fruits. Yes, fruits are good for you if it has the fiber. I also don't do a lot of fiber because it backs me up, and I don't like being clogged. That makes me bloated. It makes me uncomfortable, and it fucks up my metabolism. So I do foods that are very nice. Living in Mexico helps too. I've mentioned on this channel, the food here is alive. They don't completely nuke it. It's not all sterilized or pasteurized or any of that shit. You want those living organisms in your gut biome. It is unhealthy to not have that. So do a lot of probiotics, do a lot of kefir, things like that. If I do dairy. And then so for the main meal, it'll be like, again, tonight I'm going to order in. So it'll be something meat focused. I'll probably do barbecue. They have tacos árabes, which are Arab tacos. You can order meat by the kilo. I order a lot of arrachera by the kilo. It's like $20 for a kilo of it. They send usually a stack of tortillas. I just throw that shit out or give it to my cleaning lady. She'll be here in the morning, so she's always happy. I have foods that are eliminated from my diet that she can take to her kids. So for the main meal, it's usually protein focused. It's filling the rest of the protein. I'm 50 grams in. For tonight, I usually aim for about 100 grams of protein. So I'll do 400 grams of chicken probably tonight. Maybe I'll do a salad. Just the salad bed alone. I don't do full fatty or sugary seasonings. I'll do like a vinaigrette or something that's not overly sweetened. So that'll add maybe an extra 300 calories to whatever the 100 grams of protein is. It's usually 800 to 1,000 calories based on how lean the actual cut of meat is. and that'll put me at like 1,500 calories total. I like to aim between 1,700 to 2,200. I fill in the rest of that with a good dessert. So like a keto crust, almond flour with peanut butter, maybe some melted ghee or organic grass-fed butter. For the crust, Greek yogurt and sugar-free Jell-O packets. In fact, that is what I'm going to do tonight now that I'm talking about it, because it's quite good and I'm getting hungry. But I'll do that for my dessert. And it tastes just like a cheesecake. And you want to recreate the texture. A lot of times guys have diet pains because there is a chemical addiction component to sugar and insulin and high carbs and stuff like that. You do have to work through that. It is like detox. It's like if you drink for a week straight and all of a sudden you don't drink. Or I went to EDC recently. So other substances, if you roll for 3 days straight and then you take some time off, they call it the Tuesday blues. So you will go through that process. But once you're on a good diet, it's harder to go off diet, as we mentioned earlier, than it is to get back on the good diet. So you're like, okay, well, why would I even have a cheat day? It doesn't make sense. I'm going to feel like shit. I'm not going to enjoy the food. I actually enjoy my own food I cook for myself, or these pre-approved meals I have come in. So yeah, the keto cheesecake, anything you buy needs to be sugar-free. So I'll get like a sugar-free marmalade and put that on top. Sugar-free Cool Whip, or like Cool Whip Light or whatever. If in the States they don't have Cool Whip down here, but throw that on there and you have a full cheesecake. Or like my almond flour protein cookies. Or I make, if you guys want more of this, I haven't talked about this stuff publicly for a while, so I'm trying to re-jog my memory. But on my Instagram at Jaron Scott, I actually, in my featured stories, I have fasting foods, I have keto feasts, and I have unhealthy desserts, and I have the recipes included there too, if you want some examples of what my diet looks like. But I'll end up usually in that 1,700 to 2,200 calorie range. To be honest, tonight might be a night where once I get going, I might be full after eating, and then I'll just save the dessert for tomorrow. And now the way I structure my diet is I'm always keeping count of calories and macros. Protein always gets hit. I'm never going to miss my protein requirements for a day, so you don't have to worry about that. The rest is just calories. So like in Cancun, I replaced it with booze on the days I drank. I only drank a lot that first day and the third day. Skip the second day. Had a couple of days where I drank, and so you have to factor those calories in. But you realize I'm in a severe caloric deficit, which is fine. Do I want to be cutting? Well, if I cut, I want to do it the right way. I don't want to be doing it with substances and drinking just by lack of me sleeping and partying hard. That's not a healthy way to cut. So this last weekend, I realized, okay, I have like 7,000 calories that I can work back into the diet. I was so exhausted from traveling after my airplane fucking attempted landing story that freaked the shit out of me. I didn't eat much that night or the next day either. So this weekend I included like a more carb heavy meal. I'm still in a deficit. I'm still losing weight, but I was able to backfill or fill in some of those calories I missed days prior to set the week right. I also wanted to refill my glycogen stores a bit for the guys who are more advanced in like the bodybuilding and training spaces. So I have some energy in the gym. Last night, actually, I think Steve, we were streaming later, and I did a pizza, but a very, very light pizza, whole wheat crust. And again, at one point I had taken the thing apart when I first ordered and weighed everything and reassembled it, because food is really just an assembly or it's a deassembly and reassembly of nutrients, of energy sources. Get your textures down, and then you season it or sweeten it with your artificial sweeteners or replacements there. So there's a whole methodology I practice. Today, I'll probably go lighter on carbs. I will end up, I'm always in a deficit, usually on my day-to-days. But let's say the weekend hits, or let's say I'm already lean enough and the weekend hits. I'm like, hey, I'm naturally in a 5,000 calorie deficit at the end of the week. I don't want to get any leaner, or like when you get really, really lean, you start feeling kind of weak and you are more prone to injury. There are considerations and consequences of that. So when I'm in peak leanness, like, all right, well, I'll do a pizza on a Sunday afternoon, or I'll buy a box of donuts and I'll slam the carbs down. Usually Monday I'm bloated as fuck, but when your body is used to being in such a restricted state, it sucks up those carbs. It sucks up those calories. You really don't put on a lot of fat. And actually, if you guys have ever had bodybuilding friends, you realize they're like emaciated for the day of their competition. The day after, like they'll hit a Chinese buffet. The day after, they usually look a lot better because they fill out, that their body rehydrates. So we're talking about fat loss now, but once you do get your end goal, say you want to have a six pack, there are considerations at every different body fat level. So depends on where I want to go. Prior to Cancun, I did an aggressive cut, so like 2.5 pounds a week, which is roughly a 10,000 a week caloric deficit. No, I didn't do that daily, but again, that's where that tool, like, hey, I'll just skip a day or two of eating and then just offset it. You want to keep track of your energy bank from a caloric standpoint. So I'll probably stay now. I'm normally on a plan to where I'll lose 1.5 pounds of body fat per week. Sometimes I'll party on the weekend. Sometimes I'll go out. Sometimes I'll travel. I'll screw that up. I'll offset it. Maybe even I'll go over. So I'm 1.5 down for the week. I end calorically at the end of the week to where I might be a pound over. Well, then I just fast all day Monday, and then I eat on Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm right back on track as if that week prior never happened. So I'm thinking now, like, I'm actually pretty happy where I'm at, but I think I might get a little more cut. Maybe I'll just stay on the 1.5 pounds per week deficit if I choose not to cheat or do a reload on the weekend. Because the reload is what puts you at maintenance. So if I choose not to do that and continue on the diet, then I'll probably end up maybe around 2 pounds of body fat loss. Do that for 2 weeks more. Normally, I like to have a 6-pack by April 1st, and then I maintain that most of the summer because I travel a lot. I go to beach events. I go to cool places like Cancun and Miami and LA model parties and shit like that. So I like to not be a big fat cow on camera, especially when I make my living telling guys on the internet they're fat. Like it kind of holds you accountable there. But I know that was long-winded. I pre-warned you guys, but that's roughly what my maintenance eating plan looks like. I've done the bulk cut cycles. I've gone keto. I was vegan for a while. I've done all of the eating protocols. I've done all the intermittent fasting protocols. I've done it all. Anywhere from peak fatness, 38% body fat, down to the leanest I've been is like 7% body fat, anywhere in between. Once you have this framework firmly installed in your head in terms of like, okay, what does my energy bank look like today? I have to hit my protein requirements, and it's really all, it gets a little scientific at times. So once you have that firmly installed, like, okay, this is what my body needs from a scientific standpoint. And then you make some changes based on how your body reacts, how you feel. Like, I like the 1 meal a day. That works really well for me. Might not work well for other people. So you dial these details in, and then you have what I call like a flexible fitness or feeding framework. I do love alliteration. I am an academic nerd in a former life, so love alliteration. But that makes it really easy, kind of like Steve said. I think I took basically what his system is and extrapolated it a bit more, but basically you get to the point where you just kind of know what you need, when you need it, and why you need it. And I've gotten to the point also, I'm doing a lot more spiritual work on myself. I know a lot of people don't like those topics, so I don't touch on them too much on this channel, but eventually you get to the point where you can feel what your body needs. Your body talks to you, and if you listen to it, lean into your intuition and develop your higher self, you don't even have to think about this shit anymore. Like, a lot of guys get caught up on these rules like, oh my God, if I don't eat for 2 days, I'm going to die. Well, you know what? Sometimes you're not fucking hungry. Sometimes I don't want to eat. And then there's other days where I'm like, I'm starving just out of nowhere. Like, if I'm starting to get sick, my caloric needs go up. Like, my body tells me, hey, motherfucker, give me like a big chicken noodle soup and you better throw some carbs in the system. We're going to work. You'll be sleeping. We're going to work. We're going to give you 101-degree fever tonight, motherfucker. So you got to listen to your body too. But as a starting point, that's what my flexible feeding and fitness framework looks like.
Yeah, I just eat salt. So I don't really do sauces. I do butter and salt. I mean, as far as
salt becomes your new sugar when you eat on that type of plan, like more of the carnivore type.
Yeah, and I'll don't get me wrong, I'll have like every once in a while, but if this was a mobile camera, I guess I could take you to my refrigerator and show you how little sauces I have in my refrigerator. I have sugar-free ketchup, mustard, which I actually put on eggs. It's pretty good. Same with Parmesan cheese. Try it. Don't knock it before you try it. And then a sugar-free barbecue sauce. I don't even think we have that anymore. It's been a month or so.
Buy all sugar-free sauces, guys. Throw everything out of your fridge. There's sugar-free ketchup. There's mustard, has like 5 calories per tablespoon. That's negligible. For negligible things, I don't worry about it.
Too.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can't tell the difference, but you don't feel shitty, when you eat it.
Yeah, think about it this way. So even if you didn't change,
there's my kitchen.
Nice. Even if you didn't change a fucking thing, right? Even if you continue to eat cheeseburgers, even if you continue to eat lasagna, anything like that, if you just take the sauce off of it, even just the ketchup, perfect example, just the ketchup, you put 2 tablespoons of ketchup on something and replace it with sugar-free ketchup, tastes the exact fucking same. Awesome, cool, you just saved yourself 60 calories. Now let's go ketchup, mustard, mayo. Mayo is 100 to 120 calories per 2 tablespoons, I believe.
Miracle
You
Whip
can
works.
literally save 500 calories a day just in sauces and not do a fucking thing else and lose a pound a week.
And if you want things, guys, like creamy salad dressings, I replace those. So buy the like I like ranch a lot. I'm a traditional American guy, so buy the powdered ranch packets in your salad dressing aisle, and then mix that with avocado as a base. And then if you need to make it a little more, if it's too viscous, if you need to make it more kind of sauce-like, throw some sugar-free almond milk in there, unflavored, and guess what? You have a really good ranch sauce that's using avocado instead of like bullshit vegetable, whatever poison, cancer causing oil they put in most
soybean oil, mostly
salad dressings.
Yeah. Soybean oil, palm kernel oil, whatever palm oil, corn oil, vegetable oil,
all those estrogenics.
All that motor oil that you're putting in your body because they told you that it was good for you. Yeah, don't do that. That's probably number one. I would say whether you eat vegan, keto, fucking carnivore, I don't even know all the variations, pescatarian, whatever you do.
Paleo.
Seed oils is number one. Two things. Seed oils is number one. And then the quality of the water that you drink. My God, the quality of the water that you drink is so huge. I'm over here drinking a diet soda talking shit. But
I just read a comment.
Quality of the water
I'll get
you
to comments here in a second, but
yeah, if you can dial back the condiments or change them to 0 calorie, and then get rid of seed oils and quit drinking purified water because it's trash, and just I'm
gonna put a comment up because it just fucking cracked me up. There were no creamy salad dressings in the Third Reich. Athleticism and fitness was at heart of the 1930s German ideology, and in American education it was too. I mean, physical education was a requirement, and I remember even when I was a kid, there were state fitness requirements for kids, and I was so fat so early that I had to go to like special PE classes just because I wasn't meeting those state standards at the time. I don't know if they still have that in public schools. I'm sure they don't because it's fat shaming or it's body negativity or some bullshit like that.
We need to include everybody. Shut up.
We have a culture in the U.S. that promotes people dying prematurely from purely preventable things, like the framework I just laid out, or what Steve's talking about. You just have to make a bunch of dietary hacks, or
it's not even moving that much.
Like, you still get to eat well. I still enjoy every meal I eat, and the fact that I only eat one meal a day is I don't put bullshit in my system. Like, I eat really well. It's the same thing. Usually, I mentioned I went to Cancun last week, and that's an outlier. But typically, I don't drink alcohol for months at a time unless I'm out with the boys or something. And same thing. Like, people are like, oh, you don't drink that often. Like, why don't you drink this or why don't you order that? I'm like, I drink a really high end fine whiskey because if I'm gonna drink, if I'm gonna do damage to my system, damn it, I'm gonna do damage. Shit. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right. I'm not gonna
do some quality damage.
Seltzer. Yeah, right. So getting back to your point though, in terms of like the flexible eating, even guys that live like these stressful lifestyles, for fast food is a good one. I'll probably order out tonight, but there are, I wouldn't necessarily say 100% healthy options, but there's the least unhealthy option they have. So, for example, when I'm in the States and I need some protein, I'll go to In-N-Out and I'll get 2 double doubles without any cheese on them. I believe it comes out to like 1,200 calories, but there's your 100 grams of protein. Again, I work out every day, take 50 grams of protein before that, and then whatever you build the rest of the calories into your diet with, they will have some protein in them. So usually I hit that 160 to 175 window. Again, I calculate my protein requirements based on 1 pound per lean body mass, not my total body mass.
Let's clarify. I was going to say, let's clarify that.
Yeah, because the general rule is, and for guys that are new, it's an easy starting point. It's like, okay, I weigh 200 pounds and I need 200 grams of protein today. That's a safe starting point. If you're a skinny guy trying to put on weight, you're probably not watching this particular stream. But if you're a fan and you watch everything I do, well, thank you. And what you want to do is probably like 200 is usually a safe starting number. But for me, like when you start getting really, really lean, when I want to get like a 6-pack for a music festival or a beach event or destination wedding or something, is I realize, again, you have to make considerations. The lower you go in body fat, you do have to tighten things up a bit more, but you're never lacking. You're just adding new tweaks to your system or to your framework. So for that, I started calculating lean body mass. You can get that from a DEXA scan. I've done videos on the channel where I recommend why I do that. I've broken down my results and the insights it gives you. And again, it gives you more of a mental map from a technical standpoint of exactly how you are physically hardwired. And that makes these numbers I'm talking about, they make a lot more sense, and it makes it a lot more easier for you to visualize actually what's happening to your system as you're gaining muscle, losing fat, or doing both if you're in a recomposition type phase. So yeah, lean body mass, I calculate based on my lean, 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So usually it's 160 to 175 is where I land. So for tonight, if I order something, they don't have it here, but like In-N-Out, you got the double, that'll get you 100 grams of protein. There's your 50 grams of protein for the pre-workout, and whatever you add in has like a negligible amount of protein. So that's how I structure my diet on any given day. And I think I've had a couple guys that have hired me as coaching clients, and I've put that framework in front of them. I've got like a 50-page document. I'll probably turn into a course at some point that I give them, and then we map out their meal plan for them based on things that you already like eating. So you should already be auditing your caloric intake. You should already know what you like eating. We're not removing things from your diet. We're replacing them with the least unhealthy option, if that makes sense. And if you look at it from that standpoint, it's actually quite easy. Another one I like for the fast food thing is Chick-fil-A. So I do like their fried chicken sandwich. So I get like a fried chicken club, even with bacon on it. I think it's like 780 calories. You can remove whatever creamy Chipotle shit sauce they put on there. I believe they have 5-calorie options, like a tangy barbecue sauce or something like that. No, it's I forgot the name. Sriracha. They have like a sriracha sauce that's got like 5 calories. They've got like a honey mustard sauce that has like 10 calories. Okay, so you always go for the least unhealthy option. Put that on your sandwich. I'm satisfying the inner fat kid. I'm going to eat my fried chicken or Chick-fil-A club. And then for the rest of it, and I believe it's like 38 to 42 grams of protein. I haven't been to Chick-fil-A forever. I don't go to the U.S. that often anymore. And then for the rest of that, you're like, okay, buy like a 12-pack or 18-pack of their grilled chicken nuggets. Same thing with the lighter sauces. And then you can still hit your numbers, but you have to start thinking about food in a different way. And when you're able to do that, you're able to, like I said in my head, I deconstruct food and then reconstruct it. So learn how to do that with your fast food menus. Learn that if you're on a road trip, or if you have a red-eye flight and they only have these few options available, we can do that. You can go to Panda Express and get like a 3-course meal, but do vegetables instead of chow mein or rice. Or if you're like, hey, I need some carbs, well, maybe do a little bit of rice. But you can literally do that in real time once you've installed this framework internally. Yeah,
I definitely need to start counting the macros a bit better, because I paid kind of attention, like half attention to it when I was starting, but I didn't really dive into it. And really my diet now is basically, does it have bread or a lot of carbs? And if the answer is no, I'm gonna kind of try to use it in a meal. But I don't really pay enough attention to that for sure.
Yeah, just flip the bottle over or flip the package over. Yeah. That's all. I mean, you can pretty much eat a lot of the.
I definitely do that a lot. I just don't really think about, because like I don't really think about like a lot of times I'll have fat, a lot of fat in the diet, and it won't, like, I might hit my protein goal, I might not, but I'll have a high amount of fat because I'm just dodging I'm trying to dodge the carbs so much.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I don't know how long you've been doing keto. I don't remember if you said it or not, but the reality of the situation is you're like me. You're still over fat. Like, you're not fat by any stretch, but you're still over fat. So if you just cut the carbs out and focus on the protein, the fat will come with the protein. Like, most protein has a fat attached to it, and you don't have to focus on getting it. It's like, okay, fuck a fat bomb, eat a fucking steak. Yep. Like eat some ground beef with some sour cream in it. Like, that's got a plenty of fat. Like, you're not gonna. The thing that in the keto, and I would say the ketovore, carnivore community, the big thing is like, oh, I don't want brain fog, or I don't want keto flu. Well, if you've been on keto for more than fucking 5 days, you're not going to get keto flu. You're not going to lose energy if you have that fat as a storage. In fact, just like we were talking about fasting earlier, you're actually going to go into more. Your mental clarity is going to be through the roof. You might feel like shit for one day, And that's if you're not adapted yet. Maybe a day and a half. Like early on, I would do that. But the reality is if you're not eating enough protein, you're not going to spare the catabolism. Is that the right word? Catabolism of your muscles. You're not going to spare that.
Protein's the base of any diet. So any fit person that you've ever met, any athlete you ever meet, and again, if you want to know how to eat correctly, and like I realize there's a myriad of information out there. So just ask people you know that are in good shape, and you will learn very quickly that their diet is based in protein. That you always hit your protein first, and then you build in the rest of the calories with whatever combination of fat carbs you want. I typically go lower carbs. So like, for example, Steve mentioned the keto flu. I've found that I can still train if I'm on pure keto, but I also don't like my fat being that high. So I'm also on TRT. So fat's very important, guys, especially saturated animal fat for the natural for the natural production of testosterone. But when you're on TRT, you don't have to worry about that. So I keep my fat around 50 to 70 grams. It's all good, heart healthy type fats. I don't eat any bullshit fats ever because I don't want to die younger than I need to. It's all about risk mitigation at this point. And then usually I'll land anywhere between 50 to 100 carbs. And that's not a hard number. Some days I don't do any carbs at all, but that prevents the keto flu. And that prevents some of the things from, you might feel a little fatigued now that you're having a withdrawal from the carb addiction. Well, if you give yourself, I think even on the keto diet, they'll allow you up to 50 net carbs, which that's getting real complicated. That's carbs minus fiber. I don't do a lot of fiber because it fucks me up. So I like my food to flow through me. Again, doing the spiritual stuff, I try to be more in a flow state more often than not. And that definitely helps. So, but again, really all it comes down to is start somewhere, start with the baseline, figure out what works for you. And then you can dial in these details. Like Steve goes more like in a carnivore pure keto diet. I'd say I'd like a modified low carb / keto diet, but I do targeted cyclical keto also. I'll do carb reload days and I'll do extended fast. So all of these diet plans that are out there, all these eating methodologies or protocols or meal timing windows, these are all tools. Learn the tools, try them all out, see how your body responds, document it. That definitely helps. And then you have the pieces of the fitness puzzle that you can start to work with. You're like, all right, well, I got invited to a destination wedding. It's 3 months out. I'm working pretty hard. I maybe need to increase my protein, but you can start to map out what your day-to-day meal plan or eating structure looks like in real time to get to where it is you want to go when you start looking at it that way.
I gotcha. So yeah, I've actually got to hop off here in a second, but I wanted
no worries.
I wanted to thank you, Jaron, because I was on the last 10% meeting call, and you were talking about your guitar stuff, and that actually inspired me because I've been interested in learning. I mean, I did some music stuff in the past, but I got interested in learning the electric guitar actually. So I went and picked one up this week, and I'm gonna, especially with the downtime I'm getting from the injury, So.
Yeah, I picked up the guitar during COVID because I've been a hard worker. I grew up on a farm. I've always been working. I think at 7 years old is when I got my first chore list. And when the sun comes up, you better be fucking doing them. And they better be done before the bus comes to go to school. So all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, COVID happened. We all lost our jobs in California. The government was giving us money not to work. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this time? I've never had this much free time in my life. And I was going nuts. Like mentally, I was having a hard time. Like when you don't give a man a purpose, fuck, he falls apart fast. So yeah, I picked up the guitar, and I was going to say my recommendation for you, if it's always been an interest and for whatever reason you haven't done it, there's reasons why. You've had that internal dialogue, like I can't afford it, or I don't have time, or maybe you had parents that are like, oh, focus on your academics. My family's all academics and athletics. No one gave a shit about music. So that skill was never safe or okay to let that talent or that skill nurture or come to light. So if in doing the process, like once you commit to it, like, damn it, I'm going to learn guitar, don't get super pressured on yourself, but any of that internal dialogue that's held you back previously from doing it, work on getting rid of that too. And then allow yourself, like, I swear to God, something happens. Like when you learn an art or you create something physically in the world, it lights you up. Something happens, and that will definitely help you through your recovery. Again, it'll be a while until I get to the more spiritual stuff on this channel, unless you guys want to ask about it, and you want to do a topic on it. But usually my audience doesn't resonate too well with them, that stuff. But you get to a point where you can feel your body is just a physical state of energy manifest in the physical world. So once you realize that, and you can feel energy flowing through you or getting clogged in you, then you realize, like, wow, learning an art or creating something in the world, it does something to you. Like, you tap into something broader than yourself. It flows through you. And then you carry that throughout the day. Like, you carry that good vibe, that good feeling throughout the day. So yeah, congrats on you. I'm glad you got value out of that last call we did. Guys, William is in the top 10% group. That is a group of men looking to level up in areas of love and life by building lives worth living and loving. It's a $9.97 lifetime membership fee. That is a feeder group to Rich Cooper's top 1% entrepreneur level groups. There's a handful of admins in there that are at the generals tier of Rich Cooper's entrepreneurs and cars brand. So got a lot of resources in there. We do calls very often. I'm going to pop on Bentley's show here after we wrap this one up. Steve, I don't know if you're going to join too, and then we'll do a post show after that. So there's plenty of opportunity for conversation to get this going, but we do quite a bit of work in this private group, $9.97 lifetime membership pricing. And that's for guys, not every guy wants to go publicly. Not every guy wants to put himself out there. In fact, a lot of guys join those groups and they won't even turn their cameras on, and that's completely fine. Like, that's where we get to work. Like, a lot of this stuff we're doing, I want it to be what I call edutainment on these channels. Like, I want you to get information out of us, but where we actually go to work and like start pulling your life apart and then putting you back together as per your definition of who you want to be. That's where we do it. It's in this group. So William, I'm glad you got value out of that call. Definitely learn the instrument, man. Like, it just, I can't put words to it. It does something to you. It's like buying a car. It's like buying an exotic sports car and it's only in eco mode. And like, I had a Camaro 2SS and they used to fucking do this where it would cut off 4 of the cylinders. Like, I bought this car for the 426 horsepower, not to like get good gas mileage. Like, what do you do in General Motors? But you can bypass that eco mode. So an instrument's kind of like that. Like, you won't realize what you've been missing in life until you start doing something artistically or creatively, building something with your hands, putting it out there. And for me, it's taking energy I have in my head, or like I visually map out music and then reproducing it via sound, and it just does something to you. That process, I think, is important for every man to have in his life. So I'm glad you caught on to that idea, because a lot of people think I'm fucking crazy when I talk about these topics, and then they do it and they're like, "Oh, dude, you're so right." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm not going to tell you to do something that didn't work for me." So
you've got to have something like that, because I've been doing the jiu-jitsu, and now that I'm like probably on like a 6-week hiatus from that, I've got to have something to do, right? I've got to, if you just sit there, that's part of the problem. I would say of why I gained the weight when I did, was because it's like, what else is there to do but drink, right? But yeah,
there's a shitload of other things to do other than drink.
There is.
There's a ton.
But you don't
fill
think
your
about
time
it, right?
with new activities.
You make excuses. But
yeah, 100%. That was there.
Tomorrow. Oh, next week. Oh, when this happens, when the stars align, when Pisces I don't know astrology, but Pisces crosses fucking Virgo, like any of that shit, like whatever excuse to not do it. That's what I was telling you the guitar, like, as those, because they will come in your head. There's a reason you haven't picked up the guitar yet and you've always wanted to. Something holds you back. When that comes up, like, just get in the habit of like, get out of here. There's 2 activities in my head. Like, either get out of here or you put it in a boat and let it go downstream. Just fucking, you're not part of my life anymore.
It's crazy because both of them were both of them were kind of I guess pressure from my parents, because like the first time I got interested in martial arts, and then I grew up in a Christian household, so they were basically telling me, oh, there's too much language, which they're accurate. There's a lot of language thrown around there in the jiu-jitsu gym. But it's just so much more helpful, and I think they've recognized that they should have probably just let me do it at this point. Which they got it right with my brothers, but
it's usually how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm the oldest, so it's like I'm the one that messed up, so now I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So guys, and that is a good point to keep this on topic. And at first I thought we were deviating. I'm like, no, that's actually perfect. Realize that you're dealing with food addiction. Like, again, if you're a guy and you're like way out of shape, like shit, where do I even start? There's a food addiction component to it. There's things internally that he needed to unpack. In the same way alcoholics drown their sorrows with booze, the food addict does it with food. And a lot of times those two things go hand in hand. A lot of former fat people end up becoming drinkers, or they end up doing both at the same time.
You got to replace it with something.
Exactly. Replace it with the productive activities. So as you're going down, let's say you're overeating, let's say you're over drinking, whether you go cold turkey, you taper off. Like for me, I was drinking so much, like, okay, one less beer a day until, 14, 16 days out, no more beers at all. And then 30 days of like pure keto. Your body can go in and out of these states. But you realize, like, okay, like in the drinking example, 9 p.m. hits, I'm normally popping the top and just drowning my sorrows. What do I do now? So at that point, for whatever reason, I didn't start playing the guitar again. But I was living in Texas. I go to estate sales and buy guitars, and I'm a Gibson Les Paul fan. So you'd find these gyms, and then you'd look for the parts and go to the specialty shops, and it became a hobby, like restoring these guitars. Get them for a couple $100. A lot of times people didn't know what they have, and then you redo it and you sell it on eBay for a couple grand. So not only was I not drinking, but I was starting to get back into my music passion, not producing music, but like actually playing with the instruments of doing so. So still scratching that music itch. That I hadn't let fully expose itself to the world at that time, and then making some money at the same time. And that was a much more productive, better use of my time from that 9 p.m. to whenever I pass out hour, restoring guitars rather than, just popping tops and sitting there and putting the calories down my gullet and killing my organs at the same time, and my spirit, which, that a lot of times, again, not going to cover that too much on this channel, but a lot of times, there is a spiritual component. There's a reason you're blocking that channel of that universal life force or energy source coming through you. And you do that with food. You do that with alcohol. And so in doing so, like, it's like breaking up with a girlfriend, like your Last Dance with Mary Jane song by Tom Petty. Like you're going to be lonely. Those good feelings that beer's not there for you anymore. That pizza, those donuts, those pie, pancakes, whatever the hell you like to eat, it's not there anymore. You need to replace that with an activity. So whether, like, sounds like Williams always had the music itch. Yes, definitely scratch it and let that fucker bleed. Like let it come out of you. Really lean into the music or the artistic process, and it'll do something to you. It'll light you up, and then you're like, oh, food. Like, I'm not even fucking hungry. I'm on, my soul's on fire right now. Like, what are you talking about eating? I'll eat tomorrow. I'm on Jaren's flexible fitness fucking feeding framework. So that definitely good advice there, and a good way to kind of bring it back full circle on that topic.
Right.
One more thing before I hop off. Go ahead and break up with the carby foods, guys, because you might love the food, but the food doesn't love you back.
Dude, that's so true. Well, that's so true. And what I was going to add to that actually kind of works too is a lot of this is you're just confirming the way you already feel about yourself. You're already insecure. So you're just eating foods, or you're drinking drinks, or you're doing whatever non-activity. That's kind of I don't even know what you call that, but you're
I'd
doing
step
things.
in, but I'm choking on water. Apparently, I can't.
No, that's okay. You're doing doing things to yourself to confirm the current feelings of your current state. That's all alcohol is doing. That's all the diet is doing. The bad diet is doing. Set some goals, even if you don't know you could achieve, whether you're going to be able to achieve them, or even if there's SMART goals, set some measurable goals, set some goals that are specific, work yourself off of this stuff. I'm always a proponent of dialing it back rather than just going hard. Like, there's people who can mentally, like, just grind through going hard, but the majority of us, we're creatures of habit. And to break that habit, it's one at a time. It takes time. It takes patience. It's just like building muscle in the gym. You have to go and lift that weight 50 different times on 50 different occasions, have a perfect diet or a good diet, above average diet, to see results and improvement in your state. And that's what we're looking for. We're just looking for improvements in your state. And as you see, like with using me as an example, when I came off of alcohol, that first month was extremely fucking uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know. I mean, let's just be real. I drank heavily for 3 years, and I drank 14 years before that. So I hadn't come off for any more than a month or two ever. So the last 3 months has been a real, and not to get too spiritual, as Jared says, but the last 3 months has been a real exploration into who I'm becoming, rather than living with who I was and being okay with it. And that's kind of the thing, is you have to be okay with you changing overall for the better. It's like leaving your past self behind. That's not a real thing, but like, that's not completely a real thing, but one step at a time, one thing at a time, baby steps, do the right thing for yourself, set the goals, and just move one step forward tomorrow. Because really, I mean, tomorrow doesn't exist. Tomorrow's just a paradigm that we think about, right? You have right now, do what you can.
Not if you're drinking and overeating. And Steve, I remember, I think it was you. I got to a point. I was like, bro, you're gonna die. Like, you've got 2 to 3 years left in you if you continue on this path. Like, you don't have a choice. 100%. You have to stop. And guys, it's really important. If you have friends that are like doing self-destructive behaviors, feel free to break through them. Like, bro, like, because no one else is doing that. A lot of people enable people, or the reason we have these issues, especially in like the US, Canada, English-speaking world, is because society, not only do they not tell you like, hey, bro, you're fucking up, you're killing yourself. They promote it like big is beautiful, or beautiful at any size. I'm like, no, when you're obese, you're not beautiful. And you don't think you're beautiful, because if you thought your body was beautiful, you would never fucking poison it. It's impossible. Those things don't go together. You're not going to slowly kill yourself if you have body positivity. Like, if I positively love my body, I'm going to put good shit in it. Like, it's the weirdest society we live in. But Steve, I'm glad I broke through to you there. And again, like, not to get too spiritual, but we keep touching on the topic. So maybe we should do a stream at some point. But I've known guys that I grew up with that died way too young from drinking. Usually it's a combination of drinking and overeating. And it was weird for me. Once my parents got to the age of about 60, like, their friends, they grew up in like the 60s and 70s. Their friends started knocking off. Like, all the disco sluts who did coke throughout all the 70s, gone. Everyone who smoked for 30 years, fucking gone. If you're obese or an alcoholic, 60 years old, you're gone. And like, so it's weird in my family. My mom's like, I don't have any friends from high school left. Like, they all trashed their bodies so much they died before they're 60, and she fucking climbing mountains in Europe with her boyfriend. Like, you can 100%. Choose what path you want to go down, but if you're too far in, you're not too far in. You can always go backwards. And once you do the self-work, you realize your body is amazing. It can regenerate itself,
that's 100% true too.
I know it sounds hoity-toity, but I watched my brother in a coma for 3 months, like 5% chance of ever waking up, come back and run a 100-mile ultra marathon within the course of a year. So I saw that before my very eyes. You're not going to change my belief system on that. You had to have been in the room to experience. You're like, oh, holy fuck. The human body does regenerate itself. So you can undo the damage, but you have to start undoing it today. Like, you have to make a decision. Like, do I want to die young? Do I want to live like shit? Or the sad thing, I was obese as a kid. I never knew what it was like to not feel shitty until I just stopped feeling shitty. And that it's really sad, but I think a lot of guys fall into that trap. Like, focus on getting a little better every day. And then one day you'll wake up, you're like, I feel really good. Like, the real me is coming out. I'm starting to illuminate. I'm starting to fucking shine. Like, before it was just an ember of a flame I was burying with alcohol, but now, like, I'm a fucking beam of shining light. You feel that internally start to come through you. And then again, it's hard to like ever want to go back to point like, oh yeah, I'm going to be 100 pounds overweight. No, I'm not. Like, that would kill me. My body couldn't handle that. It would kill me very slowly. But like, if like really, I consider alcoholism, substance abuse to the point of it becoming detrimental medically, or even food addiction, sugar addiction, which is all obesity, fatness is. It's just you treating your body like shit. I view that those are all addictions, but you can overcome all of those again by taking some of these tips into place, by restructuring, auditing your life, restructuring it, bringing in new positive activities in lieu of these, and then try these things at once. And again, like Steve said, go slow. You don't have to. You're not going to be rock star God status tomorrow. You're not going to be a fitness model tomorrow, but you're going to feel a little better every day, and then you realize, shit, I'm never going back. Like, I just can't do this. It's just not who I am.
The most profound thing I can say in this subject is we're talking about all the details, right? We're talking about the diet, we're talking about the exercise, what do you do when you're injured, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is you have to come to terms with the fact that this experience ends, and you have to decide whether you want it to be a good ride or a bad ride. And as a man, a good ride includes discipline, eating a healthy diet, exercise, being well cultured, reading, practicing. I practice stoicism as just a philosophy, right? And just understanding. Yeah, like I read a lot of, or I listen to a lot of Ryan Holiday podcasts and read his books. The Obstacle's Way, Ego's the Enemy. The reality is, if you don't change, if you don't become what we're talking about, and we're all working on it on a day-to-day basis, this isn't a preachy thing, but if you don't work towards that ideal state that we're talking about being in, there's a highly likely chance that you won't make it to 70. There's already a high enough chance that you're not going to make it to 70. Already.
I know guys that were falling off at 27, having heart attacks in their early 30s, and like you see that in front of your 100%. Face, you're like, why would you choose to live that way? Like, not only are you not going to make it to 60 or 70, you're going to have a fucking bumpy ride along the way. Whereas, like, I still have shit that happens in life. I still have things that piss me off, but like when you're physically in shape, you're emotionally in shape, you're psychologically in shape, you're financially in shape, you're spiritually in shape, you're unfucking shakeable. Like, things happen. It's kind of like a seagull on the wave in the ocean, just kind of bobs over. That's kind of how my life is now. Like, dumb shit comes up all the time, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I would have rather not have done that, but it's not going to knock me off my rocker or completely destroy me. Whereas, again, when you met me in Houston, drinking every day, eating fucking fast food, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes, devaluing my sports car by just burning cigarette holes in the fucking seat, like, that's a loser way to live life. Why would you want to do that for yourself? And you can change. It doesn't take any more time. It doesn't take any more money. It's actually a lot cheaper to eat healthy because you just buy all produce and protein. Like, it's super cheap. It's way cheaper than buying processed bullshit that's killing you. And so any of those excuses don't work. We've presented the framework for you. If you need extra help, hit me up for a coaching session, get in the group, do whatever. I have other videos on it. I have a Fat to Fit playlist where I like break this stuff down scientifically and give you visuals and colorful PowerPoint presentations. You have the tools in front of you. There's really no fucking excuse. Like, why are you choosing to live life this way?
Yeah, and if you're struggling with any sort of addictive tendencies, man, I've smoked cigarettes. I still chew tobacco. I'm dealing with that currently. I drink a shitload of caffeine. Still occasionally smoke cigarettes. This is, I mean, as much as like we can say, it's full disclosure. This is not an easy fucking road. Let's just put it that way. It's not an easy road. It's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy, and it doesn't need to be easy. That's the point. It's supposed to be difficult. That's why once you get past all this shit, life is fucking awesome. Yep. That's why once you get over yourself, life is awesome. What's up?
I'll say,
I'm gonna go ahead.
If you want to add something. Yeah, you
no,
I
was saying I was going to hop off.
Did you want to sign off? Let people know where
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead.
Stay in the anonymous abyss.
I'm going to stay in the anonymous abyss for now.
Sounds good. That's totally fine.
Planting my seeds,
Do it. Well, when you're the next Eddie Van Halen, you better get up here. Come down to Mexico City on a fucking jam session. We'll get the camera on. Yeah. Take care. Yeah. Thanks for joining the conversation too. It was nice having you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We appreciate
I'll be back.
For sure.
All right. Take care.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's not that anybody in this conversation is perfect by any means. It's not that we don't struggle with our own shit on a daily basis, dude. It's a matter of playing the. It's a matter of balancing the elephant on the ball in the circus in front of everybody. And you as a man, you don't have the luxury. I mean, you have the luxury of fucking up as long as it's not public, right? You don't have the luxury of for your fan. If you got a wife and kids, you don't have the luxury of fucking up. You've got to be on your shit. Otherwise, you're putting them at risk. That's a whole other situation. So I would just say quit being a pussy about it. Just do it. It sucks. Oh, it sucks a lot.
Although it really doesn't. It sucks at first, but then you start feeling better immediately, and then that becomes addicting. You're like, fuck, it feels good to feel good. I want to keep this up. How do I do this? How can I tighten up the diet more? How can I optimize my exercise more? Like, let's optimize hormones. Let's take a look at my lipid profile. How about my vitamin profile? I get like compounded vitamin supplements, injectables that I just pop in the belly every single day. Like, just vitamins, lipids are leveled out, hormones are leveled out. You get on a kick, you're like, fuck, it's pretty awesome building myself into a much better version of myself, the 2.0 version.
And that's on the other side of the curtain. Yeah, that's on the other side of the curtain. I'm talking about the dark side, right? The first 90 days, the first 6 months, where if you were out drinking with your buddies at happy hour, not saying don't go out and have a non-alcoholic beer, not even saying don't go out and not have a beer. I'm not telling you to stop drinking, do whatever the fuck you want. But at the end of the day, you have to accept the consequences of your actions as a man, and that being whether that being a reduced lifespan, that being fatter, that being your dick doesn't work, that being whatever the fuck. You gotta accept those consequences. You have to understand and really understand what you're doing. Because a lot of us, I'm assuming our demographic is somewhere between 28 and 50, right?
It's more like 25 to 34, predominantly male. Like
right.
90% male.
So the majority of us in this conversation are halfway to the box. Like we're halfway there, or we're getting close to halfway there. Like this is a time in your life where you have to change. You have to do it.
You're at your peak, or like you're at the coming on the. Either you're going up to your peak, you'll be there soon, you're at your peak, or like I'm at the age, I think they say guys at like 35, 38, whatever it is, that they're at their peak. I like to think I'm always at my peak, but I'm not. Like I have creaky joints from old sports injuries. My hair is thinning a little bit on the sides. I'm not at my peak. Like, how do I want to ride it out? It's been a bumpy ride to get here, but do I want to ride it out bumpy too? Or do I want to have like just a fucking, just like awesome action movie, fucking hero wins the day, gets the girl, gets in the convertible, and just rides off into the sunset. That's how I want to ride this motherfucker out. Like I don't want to struggle anymore. Like who wants that for themselves? And you can fix that.
Yeah, and just to expand on the struggle part of it is like that the way that you don't struggle is that you put yourself through struggles. You have to struggle to not struggle. You have to self-imposed struggles that creates. That's like running a grader or whatever the fuck over the road. Like you're just smoothing the path in front of you. That's why the cold plunge thing got real big. That's why sauna therapy is huge. That's why going to the gym is huge. That's why being restrictive or mindful on your diet is huge. That's why reading is huge. That's why sitting here and listening to shit like this sometimes can be huge, depending on the point you are in your life. So the self-imposed struggle is the smooth path. You can control the struggle, and when you can control the struggle, you tend to get there in your mind too. You either go make yourself crazy like David Goggins, who just is an absolute fucking animal at everything, or you're just weak and you fucking fail and you don't go out and do whatever the fuck you need to do, and you eat candy and you eat bullshit and you smoke a bunch of cigarettes. I'm not saying don't do that. If you do it on occasion, it ain't going to necessarily kill you. I say moderation is everything.
I had a cigarette yesterday with coffee. Just felt like one. Just woke up wanting a cigarette. Like I normally don't smoke. I vape.
Yeah, and it's the same, right? And it's like same thing for me with chewing tobacco. I'd get off the cast and do that shit a couple times a day.
But make it like an 80-20 or 80-20 rule. Like, don't make it habitual. But like, if you have those urges, there's a reason you're addicted before. You can lean into those. And again, with the body fat, as it pertains to that, if you want to get lower in fat, then maybe instead of an 80-20, you do like a 90-10 split. Or normally I'm at like a 95-5 split. And my friends comment like, dude, you always say you never drink, but when you come out, you fucking throw them back. I'm like, yeah, because I do it so seldomly that I want to enjoy it when I do it. I want to experience all the colors of life. And but as long as 95% of my days are just on my shit, on my grind, doing what needs to be done, my days aren't that exciting, but they're structured in a way that I look forward to every single thing I'm doing, every waking moment of the day. And that's nice. It's a great way to live life. And then you get addicted to the progress, and you see these results compound, like, oh, bank account's good. Like, oh, I'm a little leaner. Like,
just want to do less and less.
But I did want to direct this to you, Steve. I have an opinion on it, but I think you've experienced this more than I have. So, Brandon Cleary, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you around for a while. Thanks for stopping by. Jaron, not a 420 fan, but love high in subs. What's your opinion of Delta 8? Is it relaxing? So for me, when I've tried Delta 8, like I prefer like actual weed, but I know that there are people that like they prefer the Delta 8 category or class of that. For me, it kind of has the same effect. I think when it was really early, it would give me maybe a bit of a headache because I think they Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, and you know more about this than I think they couldn't like get a certain molecule or some structure type, right? So it'd give people like kind of a lingering headache. Weed alternatives back in the day when I was in high school, spice was popular. That would like give guys headaches or make them nauseous and stuff. So now that I'm not tied to like any government contracts where they piss test me randomly, like I was for 15 years of my first 15 years of my adult life. Now that I'm free of all that stuff, you know, I don't drink anymore habitually, but I do replace that with marijuana. But I really got into the plant too. And you realize that it's just not all about getting you high. So I don't like high THC content. And most of the legal states are like, oh, it's 38% THC, or oh, this concentrate is 95%.
That shit.
I want my parents' pot. I want 3.5 to 4%. But let's call it this. 4.5% THC. I want the Bud Light of beers. But I get really into really into the terpenes and the CBDs and the other elements of the plant or components of the plant that do other things for you. So there's a terpene called myosin. It makes you more sensitive to the touch, and for me, it makes me more audibly perceptive, so I can feel sound. Well, that's fantastic for playing guitar. I mix that with another strain that has limacine, which is more of it's anti-anxiety, anti-inflammatory, and it's a more social strain. So I like not a super silver haze, but like a lemon haze. That gets me feeling really good. It makes me just want to vibe with people. It makes me want to open up with people. Typically, Steve knows me when I'm in work mode. Typically, I have very short patience. I am very structured in my thinking, and I am very focused, and I cannot stand distractions. And I fucking snap at people. I lose my shit. But with the weed, you can dial yourself into different frequencies. So like when before playing guitar, I want something with myosin in there. The goal is for me not to get fucked up. THC does that, but you can get lower THC blends. Sometimes the house blends will be like lower whatever. Here in Mexico, they have private cannabis clubs. So they sell them. They have high blend, mid blend, and low blend. The low blend that's hard to say. Low blend has something like 2 to 4% THC. Those are the base of my joints. It doesn't have much in the way of like terpenes or other compounds to look for in the plant, but like I'll buy the super high end, which is super high in THC, but it's even higher in like the myosin or the limacine, which is what I'm looking for. So I combine that with, okay, I can now feel sound. I'm sensitive to touch. My audible perception is heightened, so I can audibly hear the full range of sound, and in doing so, I can reproduce a full range of sound. And then you get that social, like, all right, I feel good, like I'm riding high, and the anti-anxiety, because again, I'm normally very technical. So when I go to like a music session, like I'm like, oh, you fucked that up, or you're off beat, or if you're off rhythm, or you did this, or like, oh, dipshit, you can't improvise, and like you have this self-taught, because that's how they teach music in American schools, which is a terrible way to teach children how to be creative, by the way. Motherfuckers, Jesus Christ, we have some dipshits in the U.S., but you can see I'm passionate about the topic, right? But all of that goes away with that limacine. Again, I'm not looking to get super high. I'm looking for the peripheral effects of the plant. So I view the plant, again, like I'm into plant medicine. I view plants as magical. I do peyote. I do like microdosing mushrooms, and really kind of getting more into like I haven't done that in a while. I need to do. Usually I don't do that before or after. Well, like in Cancun, I knew I was going to be drinking, smoking, doing other stuff, and mushrooms are spiritual. So you don't want to mix negative energy with positive energy. It's fun. I had a great time, but that's your gritty, dirty energy. You don't want that with mushrooms. Those two things don't mix. So yeah, in terms of the marijuana, so I use it more to dial me in and out of different frequencies. And I'm an audio guy, so like if you look like a mixing board or like an equalizer. I do old audio equipment, and I'll put on a record. Well, it's pressed at this certain time frame, and the engineers during that era, they didn't have this technology, or they flattened the sound, or they did something weird here. When you go over the equalizer and you kind of offset it, although I'm kind of a naturalist too. I like to leave it flat and hear the way that producers actually created it. That's how I view marijuana with my own energy. So it allows me to dial it in and like get really where I need to be. And I view it like anything. It's a tool. So I prefer weed personally. I like flower more than anything. I realize that there are carcinogens, so I have like a dry herb vape that I use for that, and it's all about just getting it just right. And you have to do some experimentation. If you live in like California, like, oh, I've never smoked pot before, but I learned this all during COVID. Actually, again, a lot of free time. Where you're like, all right, like I'll start smoking again to fill the time. And then by week 3, I'm like, oh, every strain does something different. And you start understanding how your body reacts with it. And then as you bring your endocannabinoid system online, it's like a whole nervous system, but just with marijuana receptors, which indicates to me, being a smart person, or, I would say IQ in the triple digits. Someone like that, you're like, oh, well, there's a reason to this. Like, why is this elaborate, essentially parallel central nervous system just for cannabis firmly installed in our designed hardware or evolutionary process? Why is that there? And then you can start to play to that. So I view it, again, it's more of like a kind of energy receptacle. You can dial yourself in and out. But I understand why a lot of people don't like it. They can't do it because of their work. Maybe they work for the government. Maybe there's a social stigma where they're at. Maybe they're in a state where it's like they still have like archaic laws where they're going to lock you away and throw away the key because you have a fucking spliff on you. That's retarded. So any of those things, I understand why people don't like it. And a lot of people, to be honest, modern day weed is really potent. So if you're not a big smoker, if it's your first time, you probably will have a bad experience. And that's not because marijuana is bad. That's because you had too much THC, which feels almost like you drink too much. Like if you really overdo it, you'll get the whirls. You might get paranoid. Your heart rate speeds up. You get you get a headache. You get the cramps. That's too much THC.
A really
that's
big
not, yeah, that's not marijuana being bad as a class of drugs. So again, I go lower THC. I go higher on the terpene counts. I probably shouldn't show it on the camera, but terpene, like I think of colors. So if I want like my sunny uplifting weed, so like something that's orange or yellow is going to give you more of an uplifting energy. If it's a darker shade of color, like a purple or a deep blue, then that's going to bring you down more. So that's what terpenes are. And that's how I look at the plant. But I know Delta 8, I think it was kind of addressing that market where they're, I can't smoke weed, or like, oh, marijuana bad, but I'll smoke Delta 8. It's the same shit, but it's not the same shit. Like if you're going to do it, just do the real thing. But that's my take, Steve.
Right.
I'll give you some space now.
No, you're good. I don't live in a market where it's legal yet. So Delta 8's really popular here. I would say Delta 8's it's kind of the sweet medium if you're going to do it. Up until I caught a contract, I would do it every day. I mean, I would do it throughout the day, or in lieu of drinking, I would do it. And it's a lot like taking one rip off a joint and stopping. Like it gets you to that like 50. It's like the 3 beers of weed. Like once you finish 3 beers, you feel good.
That's the effect I go for too. Yep.
Yeah, and it's not like you're never going to get loopy. You're never going to get ridiculous. Yes, the strains do make a major difference. Yeah. I would smoke like a sour diesel during the day. It was very energetic. Drink some coffee, smoke some sour diesel, and I was usually good.
This right here is Jack Herrera, which is like a watered down Adderall, which they put me in that shit when I was a kid. Again, poisonous culture, putting kids on fucking methamphetamine. But these monsters, Jesus Christ. But obviously, like it worked.
Yeah.
It got me dialed in. It got me focused. Yeah. So Jack Herrera is my productivity strain. It gives me super clear unilateral focus. There's no distractions. I'm not looking at the sunset or the birds chirping outside or my hummingbird friend up here at the fucking window. I am focused on the content and the conversation. But marijuana, it does have some THC. This one's pretty low. Yeah. I think it's like 7 or 8% that I found for this cartridge. It does have some THC, and it does have those positives. It's anti-inflammatory. It's anti-anxiety. I used to at one point have social anxiety. It's tough sometimes on YouTube. Like, I have to publicly be honest. How are people going to react, or how the algorithm's going to react? Am I get my channel shut down? Gets rid of all of that. And it allows me to get to work. And if I put on, I'm live now, but normally if I'm doing admin or operational or analytical type work, which is most of my day these days, I'll take a hit or two of that, put on like some synth wave or like some deep house with no lyrics. I like female vocalists, so I get distracted and I can visualize music, so no lyrics. And then it just gets in that boom, 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 boom. It gets you in the zone. It locks you in. So I view marijuana as a tool. Whereas when I used alcohol, I know I recommend a lot of guys, if you're an alcoholic, like replace that with marijuana somehow. I know that the ideal is to like never be on any drug ever, but let's be honest, we're human beings. We're not wired that way. There's a reason we have receptors built into our body to uptake these certain substances, but view them as tools. They were put here on this earth for a reason. And when you get into the bottle to the point where you're going to die prematurely, versus like, okay, I'm going to smoke a spliff, listen to a record, and then feel really good tomorrow morning and want to tackle life by the fucking horns. Like, well, take your choice. But these are all just tools put here on the earth for you. So, choose how to use them for you.
Right. That's what I used. I used Delta 8 kind of like, because I have a hard time getting to sleep. So I would use it between like 10 p.m. and like 1 a.m. and just kind of like I always let myself come off of it. So you get a little high for like 20 minutes, and then you either
same
go
with booze.
again.
Never go to sleep with it in your system. You'll never be hungover, and you'll get restful sleep.
Yeah. Well, and I would just wait until I was no longer high but tired, and then I would go to bed. That was kind of how it worked. And I'm a Girl Scout cookies fan. I don't think I've ever smoked Jack Herer for all of my
you like sour diesel Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, those are my two. So,
and you'll notice a lot of the time. A lot of times, like if I smoke and it has more THC than what I thought it did, I'm kind of disappointed. Like I don't want to be high. I like the feeling when you're coming down from the high, and you have all those secondary and tertiary effects. Again, like the anti-inflammation. Studies have shown that could help with like insulin regulation. Like, but you just feel better. But like I don't like being like super high. I don't like that at all.
I don't like that at all either. I like being in control of my mind. That's why microdosing mushrooms is so nice, and if you do both actually at the same time,
they compound nicely.
They compound very nicely. I mean, even Delta 8, it's not going to get you. Yeah, I think that, okay, so just to answer the Delta 8 question, Delta 8 is good if you don't like to be like ridiculously high, because you can smoke it until you fucking lose a lung, and you're not gonna get the same kind of high as if you smoke a joint. It's just not the same thing. But it doesn't really exacerbate any anxiety, or as long as if you're smoking a sativa during the night, you're not going to sleep. But if you smoke an indica, like or an indica dominant hybrid, like a Girl Scout cookies, like I like, you're probably gonna be focused a little bit more. You might miss some shit because I forgot my keys like 16 times one time. That was awesome. But yeah, you're gonna be a little bit more thoughtful. You're gonna be a little bit more intellectual. You're gonna be a little bit more focused on what you're doing, and you're gonna be more relaxed at the end of the day. But I don't think that if that answers your question, but I don't think that it's so heavy that you can't come out of it, or if somebody that you need to talk to on the phone calls you can't have an intelligent conversation. It's just kind of like it's the 3 beers of weed for sure. Like it's.
But
it's
remember, if you've never done it, then it'll be like your first time drinking. So go into it very, very easily. Because a lot of guys that I get girls come over here. Oh, I tried it once, I had a terrible experience. I'm never going to do it again. I was like, who's the asshole that had you suck down a full joint for your first fucking time? Like for my girls, like I'll put it in my mouth, exhale half of it, like let it cool down so it doesn't burn their lungs, and like go do the mouth to mouth thing, like just so they can like start easing into it. It's a medicine. Like you have to treat it as such and treat it responsibly. But a lot of people are going into it like, I'm just gonna get high as fuck. Oh, I had a terrible time. Well, yeah, dipshit. Of course you did. Like, what
I bought my girl a 50 milligram chocolate one time, and I think the only time she's ever done it, clearly. And she was like, I don't want to smoke it.
Those make me slurry.
She was like, I don't want to smoke it, but I'll eat it. And I'm like, yes, 11 hydroxymetabolites. It's not the same thing. Like it's not. That's your liver processes it into that, not whatever the fuck THC gets processed by. And she goes, oh, but I'd rather eat it. I'm like, okay. The 3 times I've eaten it, I've gotten sleepy and sick, and I'm good. She ate half of it, didn't feel anything.
I don't like edibles too much.
She ate half of it, didn't feel a thing. Ate the other half like an idiot. And 2 hours later, she thought she was hearing shit through the window. I'm like, fucking told you. Now she won't touch it. So yeah, go easy at it. Just go easy at it one way or another.
Treat it responsibly. That I think there are numerous or almost infinite potential pharmaceutical, medicinal, psychological, whatever benefits to it, but you have to be responsible with it. It is very powerful, and the new stuff, like it's like anything. Once it starts becoming legalized, well, actually here in Mexico, when it's criminalized, it actually gets better quality because you create competition in the market. But over the years, like we used to make fun of this when we were teenagers, when your mom would catch you smoking pot, and she's like, "Oh, it's not the same pot." You're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, no, it's not. Like today, it really is not. They were
It's
smoking
definitely
4% THC at Woodstock, and most of these carts start at like 38, 40, 45%. Like, be
Yeah.
careful with it. But you can have a very good relationship with it too if you choose to view it as a tool and use it as such.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, cool. Yeah, I know this wasn't a marijuana show, but I think it is topical in the sense that, you know, like a lot of these guys that have addictions. And again, I'm not saying like become a marijuana addict. I'm saying like when you replace your addiction to fill that space, like you're still going to have the anxiety. You're still going to have the depression. Like there's a reason you're drinking and eating all the goddamn time. You still need to do something with that. But I've learned there's certain strains of weed that I use that get me really introspective. Like it slows me way down, but my mind is just online enough to like, sometimes you need that because like I'll watch on playback. I'm pretty wired. I'm speaking pretty fast, and I'm smoking weed. You know, I'm much slower than I normally am during my productive. Not that what we're doing here is unproductive, but like when I'm actually doing work, I consider this fun. But I'm still slowed down quite a bit. But I'll watch on playback. I'm still pretty sped up compared to most people. So I'll get to a point. There's certain strains where it really slows me down. And then my thought trains, I can visualize them and start picking thoughts apart and then pull that thought out and then boom, bring up a traumatic experience or bring something out and reprocess it, make sense of it. And then like really, really deliberate and then figure out, is this a part that's going to be a part of who I am? Is it going to be a part of my life? I've installed mental frameworks to our processes to where I can like just delete memories and then just throw them away. Like you're taking a file on your desktop and just dropping it in the waste bin digitally. You can do these things with certain strains or certain medicines. I do microdose mushrooms too. Again, it's not to have an out-of-body experience and see fragmental shapes all over. Your walls are crawling and talking to you. That's not the experience I'm looking for. It's to tap yourself into other dimensions of this reality outside the physical world and start to put yourself together and add some depth to your character and really understand who you are as a human, why we're all here, why this all works. So again, it's not saying like, okay, replace food with like becoming a dropout deadbeat stoner. No, don't do that. But understand a lot of the negative stigma behind the plant, you know, does become it is part of that. But I don't hang out in stoner culture. I don't hang out with traditional potheads. I do have 420 snacks and snuggles on my Tinder, but that attracts girls. Like most girls I attract, they're like senior VPs at like international banks and shit. Like they're super smart chicks. And at the end of the day, yeah, they want to smoke. They want to slow themselves down too. And it's really quite nice for both of us. So again, it's really how you look at it, you know, what your tolerance is, what you're looking to get out of it. But approach it responsibly rather than like, oh, I just want to get fucked up on weed. Oh, you're not going to have a good experience.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Did we beat the weed topic home enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think we did.
All right, cool. Yeah, guys, for another show, yeah, I'll do like the managing munchies. Or if you're to my audience, I know that typically I don't talk. I'll mention that I do it, but I never get asked specifically on it. So if that's something you're interested in knowing more about, let me know in the comments or hit me up on Instagram. Like you'll notice, yeah. Steve has a story. Yeah, let's do a show on this.
I got all kinds of stories, dude.
That's right.
I told you the one I remembered.
Oh shit, I do too. Yeah, I unintentionally caught myself like in the drug trade in Central America, which is not where you want to be caught up in it. Just because I'd buy in bulk and people found out I had it, and then I started fronting cash. I'm like, whoa, nope, not doing this anymore. Steve has some stories too, so yeah, we'll do a stream on that. But hit me up on Instagram. Steve's got his Instagram there. Let us know if these are topics you're interested in. If they are, then you know we can definitely explore them more. But back on the show topic, maybe do this question, bring home our final thoughts, wrap it up, and then go crash Bentley's podcast. That sounds fun.
Yeah, so, I'm super down.
Aaron, I've got a nasty habit of buying sweets and salty food. Would Whole Foods be a good way to fill up without snacking on junk food? Do you mean Whole Foods, the brand or the store, or Whole Foods as in like
talking about Whole Foods just in general? I think
honestly, like whole grains and full amino acid profile protein sources. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, bro, you just like let's be real. You just answered your own question. Like, of course it would. Like, what is that's the logic of it. It doesn't have to be complicated. We've gotten to a point in our lives. I mean, this is 15 years later. Like, where we're talking about just in theory, right? We've gotten to this point in our lives just by simplifying it down to, okay, what is my body like? What is it not like? And do that. Like if your body tolerates carbs great, or you're a lean bulker, lean gainer type of guy who wants to put some muscle on, eat some fucking spaghetti, bro. Like for sure. Just do that, right? So and that's where the fat to fit thing goes, is like if you're fat, don't eat carbs. If you're not fat, choose if you want to eat carbs. Like it's not a.
If you're
not
fat, lose the fat first. Don't worry about building muscle until you're leaner. But I always tell guys like get down to like a good, healthy biological level of body fat, because what happens is hormonally and biologically, new systems come online that you've likely never had online in decades. Or shit, for me, I was fat since I was a kid, ever.
Yeah.
So you need to give your body some time for these biological, for it to recalibrate itself, and then get it into your new baseline of homeostasis, which is a healthy version of you, and then put on the muscle, because it's much easier to put on muscle when you don't have a lot of fat. There's hormonal reasons, there's biological reasons, there's cellular reasons, there's metabolic reasons, there's mental reasons, all sorts of stuff. So focus on just getting the fat off first, and then we can pack some lean muscle mass on you, and that's where you're gonna start having fun.
Yeah, and really alcohol inhibits your thyroid function as well.
Protein synthesis it inhibits
as well. Yeah, well,
you release your electrolytes and vitamins. Like it does all sorts of nasty shit to you.
Yeah, so if you've got an excessive amount of weight to lose, I mean, dude, I just learned this about my body. Like I had like borderline hypothyroidism for a long time, and I just quit drinking, and now all of a sudden I can't keep weight on. And I'm eating.
It's weird. Your hormones re-regulate. Yeah, isn't it crazy?
Oh, weird. Yeah, and I've never experienced
yourself
that on that level. Yeah, I never experienced that on that level. And like, I went when I was dropping from 250 to 240. I went from 250 to 244 like overnight. Like, whoa, hold on a second, that's a little much. And that was the first time I'd ever seen a significant drop, like almost literally overnight. And it was just water being released from my body and a couple pounds of fat or whatever. But now that I'm kind of on the decline on the weight side, it's like, whoa, oh, okay, cool. So now I mean I'm 237, but I've never had a year or any extended period of time where I didn't consume alcohol or something that was going to destroy my thyroid in those processes. And I'm not even sure what way
you.
Yeah, like I mean, you do.
The real you is starting to emerge. And I always say, again, I connect like the different worlds all together. And what we see in the physical is just a manifestation of things much bigger than you. And a lot of people don't realize this, or they're not ready to realize it. You know, like when you're 100 pounds overweight, you're not wired to start seeing, they call it más allá in Spanish, like more out there beyond the intangibles. But you notice that it does manifest physically. So like when you feel the weight of the world on you, you tend to get heavier, you tend to drink more, like your body responds to the energy that's flowing through it. And that's why I can look at someone. It's not that I hate fat people per se, but like when I see fat people, I'm just like, I got to really think twice. Like, do I want to go out with this person? Like likely they're going to creep women out, or likely they're going to drink a little too much, or they'll be aggressive guys at the bar. How can I tell? Because I can look at the way they treat their physical body and know that they're not all put together there. There's some bits of the puzzle, there's some pieces of the puzzle missing. But again, it's not to paint you in a negative light. If you find yourself in that situation, it's almost more in a positive sense or an optimistic sense that like all you have to do is like take this puzzle apart and put it back together in a more optimized configuration, and then watch yourself start to emerge as like a real human being, like a natural human being that was put on earth to do great shit in this world. But when I see a big fat person, I'm like, God, you're killing yourself. And I know, because I've been there. Like that light is just it's just dimly lit, and it lives in your gut, and fuck, it wants to get out and it doesn't know how. And that's where you got to start making the changes now.
It's a mixture of like when you think about it from a logical perspective, you're like, well, yeah, you're killing yourself. And then you have there's an empathetic end to it too, where you're like, I know exactly what it feels like. I know what it looks like. I remember it like it was yesterday. Even sometimes I wake up and I just habitually step on the scale in the morning, just see where I'm at. I'm not really worried about it at this point. It'll come off at some, whatever else is left will come off. But I look at it and I'm like, and then I go to the mirror and I'm like, man, I don't feel like I look any different. That's why I do like the transformation things. That's a kind of a hack too. If you got to lose a substantial amount of weight and you're kind of blocky shaped like me, because I'm kind of a square body up top, and the majority of my 2/3 of my body is my legs.
I don't get lines or like the V taper until I'm like 12% or lower. So like you're losing the weight. Yeah. You're losing the weight, but you still look fat. And then like it's in those like last days of a cut where like everything just shrink wraps in. You're like, oh, I've got good muscle inserts.
Yeah.
Like, all right, I'm genetically built for this shit. But
yeah, so that's kind of a hack for somebody just to mentally get over the thought of not being enough. Like like once a week or so. I would say once a week early on. Take a progress picture, download something like Collageable, put together side by side, and really look at yourself. Like with me, I mean, it's not up now, but like when I was really fat, I was really fucking fat, and I look really big. I just look bloated, disgusting, and unhealthy. But then even 20 pounds later, I look like I lost 50 pounds. Crazy. I didn't feel like I looked like I lost 50 pounds. But then another 12 pounds, and I'm looking like I'm looking a lot. I'm not saying I'm looking awesome, but I'm looking a lot better. And that was just like, for me, that was confirmation, because when I'm looking at 50 pounds, the first 30 comes off and you forget that they were there. Like you're now looking for the next 10, right?
Yeah. You still feel fat, but you need to look at that previous photo to be like, shit, like I've got some momentum going now.
It was a retraining. You're just retraining your mind with it, if nothing else. And that's what the scale is for too. If you see, like, if you are intentional about it and you're calculating out your calories and stuff like that, and you're eating your proteins and you're hitting your macros and you're doing your exercises, it will come off. Like, let's be real. It will come off unless you have something seriously medically wrong with you. And that being hypothyroid.
And at that point, you should go to a doctor. At that point, you should go to a doctor.
Absolutely.
But if you haven't calculated your macros, if you don't know total calories in versus total calories out, if you don't know your RMR, BMR, TDEE, things we've already covered on this stream, so go back to the beginning and watch through if you're just joining us. But if you don't know these things, and if you don't at least know what you're already putting in your body, and then based on what you're doing now and what that needs to look like, a trick I always say, like, let's say I'm 215 pounds, which I was at the beginning of the year. I'm like, all right, I want to be 185 by April 1st. What do I do? Well, you just calculate the macros for a 185 pound man that has the same lean body mass as you, and you eat like the person you want to be. And then you don't have to worry about it. You don't even really have to think about it. Like, just calculate. Sure. But you need to go through that process. If you haven't done that yet, then you safely can't say, oh, it's just my genetics or I have a medical condition. But once you've done that and you're like, hey, I'm doing everything right and I'm still not getting results, then that's when you need to see a doctor. But I think a lot of people build these excuses in their life to just not do it needs to be done. And again, it's not that hard. The information's out there and it's fun. It sucks to get going. I'm gonna be honest. It's like Steve said, it sucks the first 90 days or so. Yeah. But then you get some momentum going. You start feeling really good, and you don't want to let up.
When you get your first compliment, that's when you decide who you're going to be. When people are like, wow, your face looks really thin. You're like, oh, thanks. I don't know if that's good because I'm a big guy in general, but I have a pretty attractive shape to my face. Thank you very much. You know, that kind of thing. And you kind of like let it get to your head a little bit.
All of you are attractive once you get the fat off. Like when you let your genetics express themselves the way they're meant to, then you'll realize, like, our granddads and our ancestors weren't a bunch of fat, overweight, ugly schlubs that couldn't get laid. You were living proof that none of them were. So you have some cool stuff programmed in your genetic code there. You know, go ahead and take all the shit off your system and let these genes express themselves. You'll be really surprised. Yeah, like when I started getting lean, I knew I wasn't ugly as a kid, but as I started getting lean, I'm like, fuck, I'm a decent looking guy. And now Steve mentioned the identity thing. I think we'll have to do a whole separate stream on that, like the psychology of the former fat kid and recreating identities. I think that'll be a good topic. But on the identity thing, now, like, I'm known as the hot guy here. Anywhere I go here, you know, I get attention. People like, dude, like, how'd you build that body? Or like, how'd you learn Spanish? How'd you do that? Or like, oh, you don't look like you're your age. How'd you do that? So like that becomes a part of my identity. So for me to pack on another 100 pounds, that's impossible, because that would be, I mean, unless I decided to do that, but I don't see why I would. But to do that, that would be breaking my identity. I'm at the point now where I've been fit longer than I've been fat. I mean, fat's not a part of my identity anymore, but I do use the term former fat kid because there are some internal, you know, psychological issues and things like that you have to train out, like eating all the food on your plate. Like, you get to a point where you're full. You listen to your body like, hey, I'm full. But former fat kids like, no, eat everything on your plate. No, you don't. It's okay. You can put the food in the fridge. You can eat it tomorrow. Like, you've already mapped out the calories. Yeah, it's actually a very fair practice, because I grew up in a lower middle class family, like early on, and that was they kind of trained you to do that. They were like, oh, eat everything on your plate. You're not getting up. We sat at the table until it was done. We didn't have a choice.
Like, what the fuck, bro? And I'm not saying that now because I'm grown and I can not eat what I don't need to eat, right? And I just make enough food to figure it out or to get through it. But yeah, like, you just get kind of trained where you're like, you're shoveling food in your face and you're not even paying attention to what's going on. It's like, put your fucking fork down in between bites if you can. unless you're in like a 5-minute lunch break and you just got to get it down and go. Like I get that there's life circumstances and shit, but like put the fork down, give yourself a second. We were talking about this earlier actually about overeating or eating. You guys were talking about like eating pistachios. Well, your body after about 20 minutes starts to register all that food, and
that thought popped in
dials
my
that
head
in
when he
for
said
your,
that too. Yep.
yeah.
That's why you
your
eat
body
slow.
does that
Eat slow.
naturally. Yeah, and that's why I eat like
and enjoy the flavor, enjoy the nourishment. Like I'm not super religious, but like I for a couple summers ago I did an activity. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start being grateful for everything. So like enjoy the sacrifice that animal made. Enjoy the farmer who who grew those crops, and the truckers who delivered that to your grocery store, and the check stand people, and the nighttime inventory shelf stalkers. Like be thankful, like all the effort that was put into this getting in front of you to nourish your physical body. And then that kind of changes the way you eat. So I enjoy every single bite of food I put in my mouth, which you enjoy it. And then, like you said, when like 20, 30 minutes hits, like I'm usually already kind of full at that point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think that's actually probably a good place to stop. Honestly, it's a good
Yeah.
point to stop.
I was going to comment real quick on Aaron's question. So in terms of snacking, if you're snacking, you need to do an audit of your day and figure out why you're snacking. That indicates you might not have a lot going on. It's likely not an issue where you've mapped out your diet. You're like, oh, it's a calorie question, like me at a music fest. Like, it's a calorie question. I just need something in my system. I don't care what it is. Like, I do need minimal caloric intake and protein requirements. Just get it in me, and then I'll keep partying. Like, it's not one of those equations. It's usually like you have too much idle time at hand. So, like, maybe fill in a hobby or those quiet hours, or like you should have your schedule mapped out on your average day or productive day. You should have that figured out too, and identify, okay, these periods where I'm snacking, why am I snacking? Am I anxious? Am I bored? Am I lonely? Are there other emotions that I'm trying to satisfy with the snacking sensation? Or maybe, and sometimes like I can be a snacker at times too. Sometimes I enjoy snacking, so I'll plan that into my meal at the end of the day. I'll do like I do this often. I do like a pound and a half of shrimp, and then just put some like pico de gallo or some like homemade salsa on it. Eat that. Okay, it's like 900 calories. I get all my protein for the day. I've got up to 1,000 calories, 1,200, 1,300 calories I can build into the diet. Sometimes I do want to snack, and if it's a carb reload day, okay, I hit all the protein with the shrimp. Well, I'll get some sweet potatoes, slice them real fine, throw them in the air fryer, and then if you want them sweet, like they're already sweet, but put a little cinnamon and stevia on them if you want them sweeter. Sugar-free maple syrup, any of that shit, and like snack that if you have a sweet tooth. Or you can make homemade potato chips. Like, so you can find ways to get around the snacking. I do a lot of homemade beef jerky. I'll tell you what, air fryer, like I used to make fun of my mom when she got on the air fryer trend years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, like all old people like boomer type generation, they all got in the air fryers years ago. And then here I bought one like just to make healthy snack versions or sweet versions of foods that I like that I'm cutting out of the diet. Beef jerky, it's super easy to make. It's like 20 minutes in the air fryer. Do your best sugar-free marinade the night before, and then get up and put it in whenever, and put it in little baggies. You can put it in the fridge. I think you can freeze it too. Although normally, let's be honest, beef jerky does not last long in my household. Sometimes I'll make it to snack, and then that'll just be all I eat that entire day. Like a pound of beef jerky, if you use sugar-free marinade, depends on how you do it. It's like 800, 900 calories, and like there's most of your protein for the day. So, so first identify why you snacking. Try to mitigate the habitual tendency to snack. But if you can't do that, then replace the snacks, the bullshit slop snacks, with healthier versions of those snacks. And if you like sweets too, I think someone asked about sweets earlier. In the U.S., especially if you're in a fat city, although most of the U.S. is fat now, so they're everywhere. CVS, Kroger, Walgreens, any of your drugstores, buy the Russell Stover's brand. It's sugar-free. Like, there's more and more diabetic food available in the U.S., even here in Mexico, because they're getting a little plump down here too. So if you do need candy and you don't want to do homemade sweet snacks, then you can always do that, like a Russell Stover's. There still is caloric content. The ingredient they use in it's called like alcohol or erythritol or something like that. It will make you shit, so don't go overboard if you're not used to eating that replacement. There's a hilarious meme I saw years ago. Like, it's like a certain brand of sugar-free gummy bears, and it's like pretty much the entire gummy bear is made out of that ingredient. Yeah, you've been there. The reviews are hilarious. I'll look for the link and put it on the description for those who have made it the full 3 hours into the stream. But hilarious reviews, like it's pure laxative.
Yep,
yeah,
they're
exactly.
Albanese gummy bears, and they're the sugar-free. And I'm not sure what it's called, but the first time I ate them, you're not supposed to eat any more than like 4 to 6 of them. And the first time I ate them, I ate the entire fucking bag in 3 handfuls because they were supposedly better for you. And within 45 minutes,
next day.
Oh, well, not even the next day. I don't even last that long.
Oh, it's immediate.
45 minutes later to 4 hours later, I was fucking drinking water and yeah, you get the picture. It was not good. So if you're ever stuffed up, go to Walmart and go get some Albanese sugar-free gummy bears because they will make it happen for you, and you get a little snack in the process because they are delicious.
Yeah, any sugar-free candy will do that, but I think for the Russell Stovers, it's like 4 grams of whatever that active ingredient is. It's alcohol something, erythritol, or some weird word. But the gummy bears are like, it's 100% of that ingredient. So like, it's like you're literally taking
carnage.
So
fucking carnage.
But guys, yeah, you can snack without shitting yourself. You can snack without being without gaining weight or getting even fatter than what you'd probably like to. Again, it's all about just identifying habits, identifying where you're at, where you want to go. If you can mitigate the habit, if you can eliminate the habit, if you can reduce the habit, and then decide that, and then what do you replace that with? What do you put that in? And I think that's one of the main themes of tonight's conversation. I think with that, Steve, if you have anything else, feel free to add. Or
no, I think we've done a pretty good job of covering everything for the most part, at least for now. We can obviously, there's a ton of shit to expand on, but 3 hours is 3 hours, right?
All right, cool, guys. Well, I'll start bringing it home. I am Jaron Scott. This is my buddy Steve. We have our Instagrams. I thought my hand would go over to your screen like an idiot, but so you have our Instagrams down below. Hit us up if you need like coaching offers, any advice, if you have any content recommendations. Although I'd prefer you do those in the comment while you're at it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Ring the notification bell, but enable all notifications. My content does not always get put in front of my audience. I look at the analytics. I'm quite the nerd, and I'm quite disappointed by that. So we're looking to fix that. So, enable all notifications, ring the notification bell. Like the video, like it's free. Just do that. Do it right now if you haven't already done it. Like the video. Leave any comments down below. Let us know maybe some things we missed, things you agree with, disagree with. If you want to expand the topic, if you have a recommendation for a further show topic, let us know. This is a two-way communication street. I understand not all of you want to get on these streams, but you definitely know how to get in touch with Steve and I. You can start in the comments, give us some love in the algorithms because it ain't happen naturally. And guys, if you're looking to build lives worth loving, or if you're looking to level up in all areas of love and life by building lives worth living and loving, I wrote that copy and I should be able to say it, but I can't. So if you're looking to level up in all areas of love and life by building lives worth living and loving, nailed it. You want to go to this private group below. That's the top 10% group. That's myself, Richard Cooper, my buddy Moff Bentley, whose show we will crash right after this on Embrace Masculinity. So punch that into your search engine. Go over there. We're going to go bring Bentley's party up a little notch.
Carnage.
And then a good buddy of mine, Renegade Wingman, I've told stories on the channel. He's the guy that's like hosts the LA model parties and works for cool magazines and, hangs out with celebrities and shit. He's one of the admins in that group too. So whatever problem you're dealing with in life, you can definitely get some expertise from one of the admins, but actually it's more of a member-led group. There's a lot of guys in there. We've got some real new guys lately that clearly they're going to be leaders in that group. At some point I hope to maybe outgrow that role or move on to bigger, better things, but the group will always be there. It's a lifetime membership. So we have some emerging leaders, some guys that are really making some progress really fast, that maybe just hit an obstacle in life and needed an outside perspective. And now they're coming over that. Their true self is coming back up. You're like, oh, this guy's fucking badass. So definitely check out that group. If you enjoy these conversations, we take it levels deeper and we work on you. We focus on you. You have direct access to all of us, all the admins. You have access to Rich Cooper. You get discounts on all the courses and products and all that shit. So definitely check that out. $9.97 lifetime membership. That is lifetime access to the group. For more information, DM me on Instagram at Jaron Scott, Jaren. SCOTT for my audio only listeners. Yes, this is synced to all of your major podcasting platforms. I think I'm going to split it from my channel and create a whole new podcast for it. So look for the Lost Boys. That will be up probably within a day or two as I get everything synced on the back end technically. But we're all on all the major podcasting platforms for my audio only listeners. Again, that is at Jaron Scott, Jaren. SCOTT. And if you're still here, you better have liked the video already. You better be subscribed to the channel. Have that notification bell on, all notifications enabled, and drop some comments down there for us, guys. Show some love. And that being said, I'll go ahead and wrap on it up, guys. I want to thank you all for stopping on by. And until next time, I shall bid you all, or we shall bid you all. I'm assuming Steve shall bid you all farewell.
Fuck y'all. Just kidding.